Sebring International Raceway is one of the classic North American circuits, located on the site of the former Hendricks Army Airfield in Central Florida, in the heart of the Everglades. Vigilance is required here at Sebring, with the track's famous bumps and the occasional wildlife sighting, enough to keep even the most experienced drivers on their toes. There's a timeless quality to Sebring. In a sport that is characterized by change, the challenge of this place has remained a constant through the ages, with a legendary history that reaches back 3/4 of a century. Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, joins championships in Asia, Australia, and Europe as part of the SRO's global GT racing fraternity. The American Championship features 6 sprint races and culminates in an 8-hour enduro in Indianapolis.
Welcome, race fans, to the iconic Sebring International Raceway, where history is made and legends are born. Today, we're all in for a treat as the world's finest GT drivers converge for another thrilling chapter of the 2024 Fanatec GT season. From BMW to Porsche, from Aston Martin to Mercedes, our grid is stacked with talent and horsepower this weekend. 9 global manufacturers are competing on 4 different continents, and good luck to our SRO Europe friends battling out at Brands Hatch this weekend. But let's not forget the new kid on the block. As teased in Sonoma, the DXCT Corvette finally makes its series debut with the driver pairing of Brian Sellers and Scott Smithson. After the first 2 races of the season, it is Wright Motorsports leading in the pro category. In the Pro-Am class, you have the CrowdStrike effort that is the one to beat there, but both will try to extend their lead on these charging ST Racing BMWs. From the legendary hairpin of Sunset Bend to the heart-stopping speeds of the Le Mans Curve, Sebring is a track that tests the determination and skill of drivers. So will the American manufacturer make its mark this weekend, or will our championship leaders be too formidable to conquer? This is Sebring, where heroes are established and champions rise to the occasion.
It is a beautiful day here in Central Florida, Sebring International Raceway. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is down in the pits on a packed grid at this iconic venue. It's a pleasure to have your company. We get ready to go for race number 2 of the weekend. So many stories throughout the course of this weekend. Weather, of course, one of them anytime you come to Central Florida. Track temperatures already eclipsing triple digits on the Fahrenheit scale. We're in the low 80s ambient. It is a little bit cooler, Calvin Fish, than it was yesterday. And for these 12 teams, what does that mean for their performance today?
Well, typically the car's going to grip a little bit better, give you better performance, but I think the big story is going to be what is the regulator racing team, what are they able to do? Jeff Burton will be starting this race as an AM amongst all of the pros, and then Philip Ellis, if they could catch a yellow run, if they could catch a timely caution, Philip Ellis could really go on a charge here and be in a threat for a podium finish and maybe a win. So a lot to lay out there in the cards that have been set, but I think ST Racing starting from the pole, Verhagen put a brilliant lap together in qualifying yesterday, but the second Pro-Am entry, Foley, is in a similar BMW, is only a 1/10 of a second off. I think it's going to be a really fair start to this race today.
It's already been a big day for BMW in Fanatec GT competition over in Europe, with Team WRT picking up a win at Brands Hatch in the first of 2 races for them in the Sprint Cup this weekend. Well, we mentioned Amanda Busick's down there on the grid. Let's hear from her now. How are you doing, Amanda?
Hey, Ryan, you also said, is it a pack grid down here? And I can confirm that. And man, right here at the top of the grid is that ST Racing effort of Neil Verhagen and Samantha Tan. Not only did Neil Verhagen put that on the pole, but I think this is one of the more popular duos on the track as we see them getting interviewed by our DJ Clark. If you're going to talk to Samantha Tan, I'll go ahead and jump into Neil Verhagen. But Neil, I want to go back to yesterday's effort and what you were able to do in qualifying on a strategy that John Miller drew up for you guys. How will that help today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it worked pretty well. We're starting from the sharp end of the field today, so yeah, obviously there's risk involved to it. There's everything needs to go right. There's only 1 lap that you're able to do in qualifying on the new tire, so it needs to be perfect. So yeah, obviously there's a bit of pressure to that, but yeah, everything was executed perfectly. The team did a great pit stop in the qualifying. we got out there and we were able to get it done. So hopefully some more of that today.
I do have to thank Samantha Tan for her contribution to our vignette that aired earlier with the bucket hat. Thank you. That showcases the livery. You're a BMW ambassador, and I was talking just prior to getting over to the interview just how popular you guys are as a duo, but I've seen you take many selfies already today with fans. How are you in this role?
I mean, it's been incredible, especially working with the brand has been such a dream come true for me. I've been a BMW fangirl for as long as I can remember, so they've been so supportive of me throughout my career, and it's just, yeah, amazing to be part of the brand.
One more win today. Would that put all the perils of last year behind?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Good luck to the ST Racing duo as we continue to make our way down the grid. You can see the right Porsche. They will look to extend their lead in the championship as well. Moving on down, there's Robbie Foley hanging out with the Turner Motorsport. You'll see Justin Rothberg picked up his first podium in GT America. But as we sneak in and talk to Robbie about the young rookie, and oh wait, one quick, Robbie, I'm going to come back real quick. Come here. That is Mrs. Rothberg and Justin's dog. So she's here. I told from Dad that she's very nervous about today and race day, but Robbie, just talk about Justin. We saw him on display up against Johnny Connell just doing it. How do you expect his talent just to rise here?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been doing a great job. His first year in GT3 and his first couple races, he's progressed each race, and today you saw that. Super mature drive. He stayed with it, stayed with the leaders. He could see the leaders at the end of the race. So big step forward from Long Beach and Sonoma, and that's what this year's about for him, is just learning, trying to teach him just to know what he doesn't know. That's the biggest part. He's got a lot of talent, so we're just going to try to mold him and get him some experience.
Robbie will start this effort today, Ryan, and then we'll see Justin. Big praise from Johnny O'Connell, big praise for Robbie Foley. A lot of weight on that kid.
It's been a good weekend for Justin Rothberg, that's for sure. He's already got a couple of trophies to put on the mantelpiece, and he's aiming for another one, maybe even one with a big number 1 sitting on it as well. Well, anytime you come to Sebring, you just can't help but notice all the history that surrounds you. This is indeed a special place with the first running of the 12-hour back in 1952. This place celebrates its history as well as any venue in all of motorsports. Let's hop in the time machine, shall we? Back to 1965. Some really cool footage from the 12-hour race of that year, nearly 60 years ago. It was a hot day in Sebring that day, with temperatures already reaching 90 degrees Fahrenheit by 8:30 in the morning. High humidity, as you would expect in Florida on that day, as the pre-race festivities took place. By the time the race got started, temperatures already were up to 94 degrees. That was at 10 a.m. And the weather that day would be a huge part of the story. But also part of the story was the controversy coming into the race weekend. Rule changes in the off-season implemented by Alec Ullman, the promoter here at Sebring, put in place trying to entice Chevrolet to come and take part. They did so with the Chaparral team, and they put cars on pole. In fact, shattered the track record in the build-up to the race in those beautiful Chaparrals. Jim Hall and Hap Sharp put their car on the pole by over 9 seconds under the existing track record. But they were up against stout competition. Shelby American came with some GT40s, Daytona Coupes as well. Privately entered Ferraris, including one driven by Graham Hill, who you saw a moment ago. This was the typical traditional Le Mans start at 10 o'clock sharp. At the very start of this race, it was actually a lightweight Chevy Corvette that pulled away to the first lead initially. The legend has it, by the way, that the driver of that car didn't put his belts on or even close his door completely until lap number 2. So keen was he to get away with the race lead. There was an incident, though, at the very beginning of the race, coming together in the early stages. That obviously proved to be a setback. Other issues throughout the race caused by the heat. Several cars vapor locked on the grid because of the high temperatures in the early going, and that only continued throughout the course of the race. Multiple drivers treated for heat exhaustion back in 1965. The heat was the story until it wasn't. The rain came at about 5:30 in the evening, 5 inches in the first half hour alone. The new pit wall created a stream down the front straightaway, with speeds dropping to about 28 miles per hour on average in the final handful of laps. But it was Hap Sharp and Jim Hall that came away with the victory in their Chevy-powered Chaparral 2 in the 1965 edition of the Sebring 12-hour. Little trip down memory lane, and of course talking about Chevrolet and its importance here at Sebring. It's a perfect weekend to do so because we have the Chevy Corvette GT3 machine making its SRO debut here this weekend with DXDT Corvette Racing. Tough day yesterday, Calvin, for Scott Smithson, who was involved in some contact that caused him to retire early, but he and Brian Sellers have high hopes for that program, not just here this weekend, but for the season writ large.
Yeah, real buzz with that car in the paddock now and on the grid, so big excitement there. Talking to the crew, they said it's really like a little prototype in a GT skin, so super high technology involved in that car, and Brian Sellers will start that car today. Kind of mid-pack, but as learning as they go, they're going to get stronger every single weekend. They're going to a two-car effort by the time we get to Dakota with a pro entry for Tommy Milner and Alec Udell.
Well, it is a busy, busy weekend in sports car racing, and within the SRO community, two big races going on this weekend, including here, of course, in Sebring, and over at Brands Hatch as well. Let's hear from David Addison from Brands Hatch earlier today.
Didn't even get into the race. Let's look at the highlights of race 1. It was a great start by Ben Green from pole position with an inside line claimed by Dries Van Voor. That put the BMW second as they dived through Paddock Hill Bend for the first time, only for Mathieu Drudy to fight back on the outside, and they traded second around the first lap as there was contact. Thierry Vermeulen and Jaffro Altway's Ferrari getting into the back, and Tom Gamble's McLaren. Altway copped a penalty for it. Gamble dropped way down the order. And then Patrick Niederhauser got it all wrong going into Surtees. Flew off the road all over the grass, and that put the car into last place. Van Voor finally made the move coming out of Clark Curve, and he was ahead as they got to the timing line for second place. And then he started to attack that gap to Ben Green. He brought the gap down and down. It was 2 seconds before they pitted, but with Dries Van Voor breaking much later at pit in, he closed right up, and then a faster pit stop meant that the BMW leapfrogged the Ferrari. On pit exit, BMW was ahead as then Thierry Vermeulen ran off the road, and paddock Ricardo Feller having done likewise in the Audi. So 2 cars slightly delayed. We then had a safety car period to retrieve the parked Comtu Aston Martin of Nicolas Bart from Druids, and on the restart, Ricardo Feller made a move against Lorenzo Ferrari, teammate on teammate, and the contact fired Ferrari through the gravel. And that wasn't our only safety car period. The second one was for, yes, a Comtu Aston Martin, Mathis Lismon in the gravel at paddock, and it was just a 1-lap restart, beautifully controlled by Charles Wirtz as he came through to score victory in the first Sprint Cup race of the year. The WRT for BMW, Charles Wirtz and Dries Van Voor win at Brands Hatch.
Yes! Wow, that's how we start the season, sprint. Good job, guys. Good job. Still 1 race to go this afternoon. That's a good start. Amazing pit stop. Amazing pit stop.
Yeah, it was a great pit stop for sure. And that's, again, something we always know WRT is so good at.
Well, I mean, we've seen the season in, season out, and everybody else in the pit lane knows that this team really is the one to measure yourself against. And there are other great pit stops throughout the pit lane, but we were focusing on that battle for first and second, and that battle was won, first of all, on the entry into the pit lane, but then actually when the cars were...
Thanks to David Addison, and a belated happy birthday to the great John Watson yesterday. Happy birthday, Waddy. Well, from one classic venue to another, Brands Hatch to here in Sebring. A lot of differences between the two, but a lot of the greats have raced and won at each of these venues, in a new slice of history set to unfold before us right here at Sebring International Raceway this weekend. It's a great field, exciting times, and we're about to get going. Let's take a pause for the national anthem. Here with the Star Spangled Banner is Rebecca Wills.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early rays what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Rebecca Wills with the national anthem, backed by the Avon Park High School JROTC color guard. Part of the pomp and circumstance ahead of the big race of the weekend at this historic venue. Sebring International Raceway opened in 1950. This place identified by aeronautical engineer Alec Ullman as a potential site to host endurance racing inspired by the classic, of course, over in France at Le Mans. The old Hendricks Army Airfield surface still serving, of course, as the track surface here today. 3.7 miles in length, 17 turns in all. Turns 1 and 17, perhaps the most difficult of them all. Also, good passing zone. Same can be said for turn 7. Also, tower turn. Turn 13, a good place to make a move. We've seen some other opportunistic attempts elsewhere, and it doesn't always come off the way the drivers involved would like. Well, let's get a better view of this track with our own Calvin Fish and also Parker Thompson, a safety car lap around Sebring.
Well, the Fanatec GT track preview this week has a different look. We've stolen the Toyota safety car. I've also grabbed Toyota contracted driver Parker Thompson to take us for a hot lap around here. Sebring, so legendary, so much history here, and it's all about respecting the bumps, and we start the lap here, coming into turn 17. This is a roller coaster ride through here. Look at the bumps that you go through. It's like we're riding a mechanical bull here, just trying to keep that tire on the road, Parker, talk us down into turn 1 as a fast start to the lap here at Sebring.
Well, you can take a deep breath because you just went through the bumpiest corner in North America. Get the car over to the right-hand side. I'm looking for the oddly colored pit wall entry. That's my brake marker. And now I'm going into the second bumpiest corner in North America.
Line corner through here. You see the exit. I'm on the right side of the car and I see that exit so late. Surviving the bumps here. Down into Kristen corner, turn 3.
Brake at the 200, get in way earlier than you think. As you hit the concrete 3 to 5, you got to get in narrow to make sure that you make the corner.
Seems like patience is the key here. You got to be disciplined here to get the exit.
Especially with the heat of Sebring, you got to make sure you get in early there.
Out of turn 5, nice clean exit. Hug the right side of the road. Really important brake zone coming up for turn 7, the hairpin. What are your braking markers down here into this brake zone, Parker?
Qualifying, you're going for the 3. Today in the heat, though, we're going for the 4.
Woohoo! That is deep. Love it.
Might make an appearance on Apex Hunters United with that.
That was cool. So many legendary names here. This is the Fangio curve coming up. Then another really important brake zone down into turn 10.
Cool everything off, aim for the 300, get in early. You want to nibble that apex curve and get set up for 11.
Sure, when the tires are on, you have to compromise the exit a little bit, I would think.
You do a lot. You want to do everything you can to make it flat, and you got to compromise the exit at 10.
And get nice and parallel to that curbing for the turn into tower corner. This is turn 13.
You get in way earlier than you think, a lot of bumps, and let the car eat that exit curve.
Nice. Flat out now, up here through the gears, about 145 miles an hour in a GT3 machine. This is Bishop.
Don't get distracted by the airport on the other side of the track. Aim for the 200 and get down to that apex curve where all the grip is.
Beautiful rhythm through here. See how Parker used a little bit of that runoff room on the left side, roping up his hands early for the back straight. And this is the almond straight.
There you have it. Take a deep breath. Watch the exit you got out of 16 and get ready for the bumpiest corner in North America.
Sunset Bend. What a corner, what a challenge. What a lap here at Sebring. Unbelievable. One thing's for sure, don't ever change it. I love it.
That was awesome. Not sure who was having more fun, Calvin or Parker, and I do wonder how many mechanical bulls have you ridden, Cal?
Several through turn 17, it seems, over the years.
He knows of which he speaks. Calvin Fish, a former winner of the 12 Hours of Sebring. Well, this was the car of the day yesterday. RS1 back in the championship after missing Sonoma, and Trent Hidman and Spencer Pumpelly, they came through with the big win. Talked to these guys at dinner last night, Elliott Skier and Adam Adelson. They are raring to go. They're loving the pace in their Wright Motorsports Porsche here this weekend. Kyle Washington's come on strong here. He had a great run in GT America earlier today. Excited to see what Tom Sargent, his co-driver, can do for the GMG team. And we talked about these guys already. It is Cinco de Mayo, and this is the taco wagon right there from Turner Motorsport. We'll see what they can do after a podium in race number 1 on Saturday. Speaking of race 1, here we go. This is the way it started with Philip Ellis leading the field to the green in the Regulator Racing Mercedes. Got challenged, though, in the early going by Spencer Pumpelly. Ultimately did hold on to the lead. This was later on that opening lap. Varun Choksi up the inside of Luca Mars. That was big. This also very, very big, ending the day for a couple of contenders in the Pro-Am ranks with the DXDT Corvette and the Schwest Poblator Racing Mercedes. Good battles all throughout the race between ST Racing and Racer's Edge. Mars putting the pressure on Choksi. After the pit stops, though, a great pit strategy and a wonderful outlap from Elliott Skier put Wright Motorsports up into prime position within their class. A little bit of a hang-up there for Jeff Burton as he got into the full-sitting car. Just couldn't find the gear, leaving the pits. Neil Verhagen charging in his stint. He'll be on the pole here today, sliding to the inside of Jeff Burton. Ultimately, it took him a little while, but he did make that pass. He would go on with Samantha Tan to take the victory. A little bit later on, this was Robbie Foley around Jeff Burton for second in the Pro-Am class, but as mentioned, RS1 fending off the challenge from Wright Motorsports. They win in the Pro class. There's the ST Racing team celebrating their victory. They look to sweep here this weekend, starting race 2 from the pole position. Great sportsmanship there between Trent Hidman and Elliott Skier as they celebrate, and there's the celebration for the ST Racing driver duo. It was a fun race in race 1, in large part, Calvin, because of the alternate strategy taken by this team. Regulator Racing electing to start their pro yesterday. Philip Ellis from pole built a huge gap. Jeff Burton nursed it during his stint, and they came home with the podium finish, but now the roles are reversed for race 2.
They are, so Jeff Burton needs to go out there, lay down some good clean laps, don't go off the road, keep the car clean, and then when Philip Ellis jumps on board, if they catch a yellow and compress the field, then Philip Ellis can go to work with that. So they're rolling the dice a little bit, but they have a good chance here today for another podium spot.
Can't wait to see how that strategy plays out. All of that is due to a rule change in the offseason that allows teams to nominate driver 1 and driver 2, where previously it had been mandated based on FIA driver grading. You see the cars now, they're sitting stationary. The tires affixed now at this stage out of those tire warmers, either the ovens or the blankets, and so they should be at or close to optimum operating temperature. We heard from Neil Verhagen speaking about the strategy in qualifying, electing to go out for just the one flyer on that set of tires. That might leave him with a set that has a little bit more life in them relative to his opponents, and he's starting from pole.
Yeah, I mean, he's in great shape, and I think with their victory here yesterday, they leaped to the top of the point standings with the Kurtz Brown effort, having served that drive-through penalty and only finishing top 5. So they're in great shape. They start from the front of the field, and as you pointed to, minimal laps on the starting set of tires here today. So he should be in great shape, but Robbie Foley's right behind him. Similar pace in his Turner Motorsports BMW, but Elliott Skier on the front row, you got to feel he's going to be going for it down into turn 1, admittedly in a different class car.
This is a car that showed some pace during the race yesterday, but Zach Veach will start the 93 from Racer's Edge all the way down in the 10th spot. I think his co-driver, though, Luca Mars, has been one of the stars of the early part of the season.
Yeah, he had a great battle there yesterday with Choksi for that position in the early going. So look for him to make some moves here later in the going.
Front row of the grid coming up, the 38 from ST Racing and the 120 from Wright Motorsports. They will be on the front row as the field comes to the green flag in just a few moments' time. But it is getting close to that time to get the race underway. And here to give the command to start engines from Tech Love Motorsport, Please welcome Eduardo Del Forge to give the most famous words in racing.
Drivers, start your engines, and good luck.
Well put. Great job, Eduardo. And with that, the field roars to life. They're about to head out for that single formation lap here at Sebring. And it all has built to this over the course of this weekend. This is a team that just needs to get some laps under their belt. Brand new car, brand new program. Yes, they've done some testing, and it was here at Sebring, but they were limited in what they could learn in race conditions yesterday with an early incident.
Yeah, that was disappointing. Had some steering and steering rack damage with that incident between Scott Smith, and now we see Sellers not able to get any life into this Corvette.
Car had to undertake some significant repairs after the contact with Roche West yesterday. Looks like the car is rolling now, so Brian Sellers should be able to take his grid spot back. But so much excitement surrounding this program, doubly so because by the time we get to Circuit of the Americas in a couple of weeks, that program will have expanded to a second full-time car for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Alec Udell is going to be joined by Corvette Racing Factory driver Tommy Milner. So there's good chemistry there on the group because his sister runs the team. So that should be an easy transition for that. And they'll be running in the Pro class. So it'll be exciting to see two of those new Corvettes on our grid.
And don't forget, Tommy Milner did most of the development driving on behalf of Pratt Miller and General Motors in the development of that car. So he probably knows this Corvette C8 as well as anyone. So a great asset for DXDT Racing to have. Well, the field weaving back and forth here behind the safety car, working on those brakes, working on those tires, and we'll take a look here at the way they will line up for the second of two races here this weekend. Starting on pole position, Neil Verhagen, just a tenth of a second off track record time. He'll have Elliott Skier alongside. Elliott was rapid in the race yesterday. Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsports starting second in the Pro-Am class, third on the road. Colin Brown and George Kurtz looking to recover after a tough day yesterday. Bill Oberlin starting back there in the fifth spot next to Trent Hindman, the winner yesterday for RS1. Then you find Tom Sargent, young Aussie, in his first season of GT3 racing for GMG, next to Sellers in that Corvette. Then it's Andy Lee and Zach Veach back in row number 5. The sixth row of the grid belongs to Aaron Povoleto, the Canadian, and Jeff Burton from Regulator Racing running on an alternate strategy. It'll be Jeff's job to try and stay within striking distance for his teammate Philip Ellis then to come storming back through the field, and they'll be hoping for plenty of safety car interventions in this race today, contrary to their strategy yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday they needed it to go green, which it did, and just ran shy. Right, there's one lap to go when Robbie Foley nipped Burton for the runner-up position, but a really solid run for both he and Ellis nonetheless.
One of the stories certainly this weekend has been watching that car come through the field on its varying strategy relative to the rest of the grid. We'll keep an eye on that and keep tabs on it as the race progresses. Mentioned this car, the 04, needs to rebound. Yesterday, a start procedure infraction. George Kurtz was ruled to have dipped out of line just before the green flag. That meant a drive-through penalty, and in a completely green flag race that was very difficult, ultimately impossible to fully overcome.
Yes, and they've been scratching their heads a little bit because George has been pulling double duty, and GT America swept the weekend in their sister car and doesn't quite have the same pace with this car in Fanatec GT, so they're not quite sure whether they can't replicate the setup and the form here.
Strange, isn't it? Otherwise identical chassis. You would think that the pace would be comparable one to the next, but that team will go to work. They'll try and equalize that as the season progresses. For now, though, the focus turns to this race, the second of two here in Sebring. We've got Oliver Cornish from Rova Motor Oil there to give the green flag to start the race as the Rova pole sitter Neil Verhagen enters the VP acceleration zone. A couple of cars peeking out of line. The race control group will take a look at that, but for now the green flag waves. We are racing. Race number 2 in Sebring underway. It is Neil Verhagen who leads the way into turn 1. Elliott Skier holding on to the second spot. Then it's Foley and Brown. That's the top 4 with Trent Hinman not too far behind for RS1.
Skier really on the attack there. The car that runs in second position, that green and yellow Porsche from Wright Motorsports. It's not for class position, but he wants the clean air on that Porsche. He's going to try and go for it hard here on Neil Verhagen on this opening lap.
They were aggressive with tire pressures yesterday, hoping that car would excel early in a stint. Have they tried the same again? We shall soon see as Skier sits in the tire tracks of the Connecticut native Neil Verhagen, the leader in the Pro-Am class. Keep in mind, Skier is the leader in Pro.
Look at Tom Sargent way up the order. I think he's in top 6 already as we see Povaledo off and back on the racetrack.
Yeah, finds himself there mixing it up with Jeff Burton. Here's a move. It looks like Foley taking a look to the outside of Skier. Unable to pull alongside. Skier manages to hang on to that position, but that's allowed Verhagen to step away.
Well, we talked about that excellent pole lap by Neil Verhagen, but Robbie Foley there sitting in P3 was just over 1/10 of a second behind him, and he didn't use the same strategy, so I think there's great pace in that Turner Motorsports, number 29.
Looks to me like Veach might be up a spot or two as well for Racer's Edge. That's the red Acura running just inside the top 10 at the moment. But this is the fight for the second spot in the overall running order. More importantly, though, this is for Robbie Foley to try and keep in touch with the next car in his class. That's the overall leader in Verhagen.
Yeah, just needs this race to settle in. You see Skier getting a little bit defensive there, blocking the inside. He's totally entitled to do that. Robbie tried to go with him. Now switches back to the outside on the approach into Sunset.
Big day for BMW already, winning in Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Cup competition over at Brands Hatch. But here at Sebring, it's the BMW of ST Racing that shows the way. Second place to Elliott Skier, then it's Foley, then it's Brown, then Hinman. Here comes Foley. He's looking very aggressive here early on.
But Skier is so committed through turn 1. He had a monster moment in qualifying that he survived yesterday. Then on that undercut lap that he put together was off the road as well. So he's got big commitment through that high-speed turn 1.
Elliott told us in no uncertain terms that save in qualifying was the save of his career. It was spectacular. And he's undaunted, continues to push in his pursuit of the overall leader, Neil Verhagen, trying to keep Foley at bay.
Yeah, he was trying to decide which side of the racetrack he's going to crash on and suddenly found the car straight and continued. Just an incredible save. And they've had a great weekend. Runner-up finish yesterday, following up from their sweep of the weekend in Sonoma in California a few weeks ago.
BMW, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, then the Corvette. How about that? Brian Sellers, from those moments that he had, apprehensive moments when he struggled to leave the grid, had a nice solid start, settling into a rhythm. We hop on board with the Ohio native, Brian Sellers. That was Tower Corner. Car out the windshield. Trent Hinman
is being selected there on the dash. 145 miles an hour here as you come through Le Mans. Good gear here. Onto the Almond Straight. Ramping up the speed all the way up to about 160 miles an hour, and he'll hit the brake pedal next. Turn and then brake. So different approach to a corner as normally you're braking and then turning. Basically turning flat out to that approach.
Toughest corner on the track?
I think so. Maybe the toughest corner in North America.
Lap times tumbling as the field comes around to complete the second lap. Neil Verhagen with the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race in the early stages. He's purple in sectors 1 and 2, but it's Elliott Skier who is fastest in the middle sector of the race so far. Well, we talked about the story for DXDT Corvette Racing. Brian Sellers settling into a rhythm, running P6 right now. Let's get more on their story with Amanda Busick.
Ryan, I was talking to David Askew on the Corvette yesterday. He said that they were down on power. I did clarify with Scott Smith of exactly what that experience was. He said that the Corvette was short shifting around Sebring. And when you think of this track, where does that really make a driver vulnerable?
Well, I mean, if you're not accelerating all the way through some of the gears, you're not going to get full performance. So if you're short shifting, sometimes you do that if you're coming through a bumpy part of the racetrack, and if you're in the shorter gear, you're going to get a little bit more wheel hop and wheel spin. So sometimes you can utilize that just to settle the rear end of the car down, but you don't need any compromise at this level of the game.
That familiar DXDT livery sure does look good on this new Corvette. Brian Sellers currently sitting in a strong position just off the podium within the Pro-Am class. It's a great bounce back after the major disappointment they suffered coming through this section of the track yesterday.
Yeah, it was right there where Smithson made that little bold move on Ross Schwest and turned him around and got the penalty, but either way, both cars were severely compromised. Schwest's day was done, and Smithson got back out there, but then they had to take the car back to the awning.
Rarely see this on timing and scoring, but two cars shown purple in Sector 2. That's because Verhagen and Skier with equal sector times to the 1,000th of a second. And that, nevertheless, has still left Skier vulnerable because Foley is absolutely wearing him out.
Yeah, and he's going to be frustrated by this because Skier is not for class position, but that's just the way the dynamic runs with these races when you got multi-classes running together with drivers and cars of very similar pace.
If you look at the running order, left-hand side of the screen, the cars with the black number plates and white numbers, those are Pro-Am class cars that today are starting their pro drivers, with the exception of the car down in 12th, Jeff Burton. They're on the alternate strategy to everyone else. The cars with the white number plates and black numbers, those are pro class cars, and all of those have their higher graded gold or platinum drivers in the cars, with the mandatory silver driver set to go in the second stint.
Verhagen looking strong there. Foley's keeping Skier really honest for P2 overall. Colin Brown, we talked about the 04 car, not really demonstrating the same sort of pace that George Coutts has with his sister car that he runs in GT America. Trent Hinman off the back, the overall and pro win yesterday. Sits there in P5 at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if he can just keep it tight and let this man, Spencer Pumpelly, go to work in the second phase of this race. He should have an edge in pace over most of the other AMs in the field.
Saw up on that War Wagon their champion driver from a year ago, one of them, Eric Filgaris, who continues to drive for the team in Pirelli GT4 America, but he was sitting up there taking it all in. It was his job here 1 year ago alongside Stephen McAleer for RS1.
He actually grabbed a win here yesterday in Pirelli GT4 America. Post-race, finished second on the road, but the winning car was excluded and moved them up to the win.
Begin at Bill Oberlin at work. Third place car in the pro class. Moments ago, I thought maybe he was going to put up a bit of a fight, trying to get by Brian Sellers, but Sellers has jetted off in pursuit of Trent Hinman, and now the fight might be with young Thomas Sargent there. 7th and 8th on the road. That is the pro class car of Oberlin and the Pro-Am of Sargent, the Porsche, not too far behind the BMW Ace.
Yeah, Sellers and Oberlin know each other well. Actually competed together with the PTG squad, BMWs, way back when. Seems like moons ago, and it was.
And that, of course, was, there's another connection there with the Milner family, right?
That's right. Yeah, Tommy Milner was involved as he started his career, but Tom Milner Sr.
Correct.
Ran PTG, so a lot of great relationships and associations over the years between these top sports car drivers.
Tom Sr.'s daughter, Erin, is the team manager for DXDT, and her brother, Tommy, will be in their sister car when it debuts at COTA.
Different approach there to Sellers. He takes a really wide angle there through turn 12 to set up for that turn in for turn 13. Tower corner, talk about getting parallel to the curbing there when we're on that Fanatec GT track preview of Parker Thompson. It's a really tricky corner, Tower, the one in the backdrop here.
Couple of drivers here making the transition up to the GT3 ranks after several seasons racing one another and winning from time to time in the GT4 ranks, both in Pirelli GT4 America as well as GT America, powered by AWS, talking about Elias Sabo and Ross West. It's the orange Aston and silver Mercedes at the back of this field. Currently find themselves a little bit further down. Now it says, I guess it would be Andy Lee and Aaron Povoleto actually driving those cars, so I got myself a little mixed up, but it will be Schwest to finish in the number 50 car and Sabo to finish in the 8. But I guess these co-drivers also would have raced against each other in Pirelli GT4 America last year.
Elliott Ski has a really unique line. When he exits turns one, he kind of moves over to the left and then does an abrupt change of direction to get back over to the right to line up for turn 3, brake zone, and turn in. I think Foley may have a little bit more pace here if he could clear Elliott, but Elliott's doing everything he wants to do. He's just trying to gap the next pro car, which is Trent Hinman, give Adam Adelson as much of a buffer as possible to try and protect that lead in the second phase of this race when Spencer Pampelli is on board the RS1 machine.
Top 3 are, without a doubt, the fastest 3 cars on the track right now. They're running in the low 201s. In fact, all 3 were either in the 201.2s or 201.3s. Not much to pick between the 3 of them. Colin Brown, best of the rest, running in the 4th spot. Trent Hidman running similar times, but as you can see, the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, that was a couple of laps ago, still belongs to Neil Verhagen in the pole sitting number 20, or make that the number 38 BMW from ST Racing.
Foley was the fastest man on the track just last time across the stripe at a 201.2, so he's got great pace there, and I still think that he may have something for Verhagen if he can just get by Skier.
Race Vision powered by AWS. Which car is strongest in which sectors of the track? Sectors 1 and 2 belong to the 120 of Skier, but it's in Sector 3 that the BMW flexes its muscle. Neil Verhagen with the quickest final sector. And yet, it's a different car that actually is the quickest of the bunch the last few laps in Foley.
Yeah, and I think his progress is being stymied. I'm not saying he's going to streak away and catch Verhagen quickly, but I think he might have a 10th or 2 in hand if he could just get some clean air on the front end of that BMW.
See the cars all up over these curbs. These are steep curbs around Sebring. But the quick way is to get up and use them, I take it?
A little bit. You don't want to get right up on top of them. That upsets the diffuser a little bit in the rear end of the car as well. But yeah, you can certainly ride them a little bit. Use them as almost like a cushion on a dirt track.
Verhagen, Skier, and then Foley, the top 3. This is how they've run since the drop of the green flag. Verhagen starting to edge away just ever so slightly, up to 2 seconds now over this battle for 2nd and 3rd on the road. But crucially, Skier is surrounded by cars that are not in his class. The next car in that pro class is Hidman back in the 5th spot. So Skier finds himself pretty well positioned at this stage.
Yeah, he's got about almost a 5-second gap on Hinman right now. And that's really the math that they're looking at, you know, building that gap to the next car in your class and giving your teammate the best advantage when he jumps on board. Board here with Verhagen. This is turn 16 down the Almond Straight. Should see about 250 kilometers an hour, I would think, as you look at that dash for him. See how patient you have to be with the throttle mid-corner there in 17.
That lap from Verhagen.
Foley's by.
Yep, good eye. Foley has made the pass, not for class position, but it does now turn the BMW driver loose. He'll set off in pursuit of Verhagen, who just lapped within half a tenth of his fastest lap of the race, which is the CrowdStrike fastest lap, it's worth noting. We got to look at how this position changed hands and put Foley in the Turner BMW on Cinco de Mayo, Taco Day. It's always Taco Day for Turner, of course, but around the Porsche of Skier. If ever they wanted to win on a day, this would be it for the Turner guys, right?
Yeah, for sure. They love to have fun, but they take their racing very seriously. It's a great dynamic. Anyone who drives with them and they bring new drivers on board, they love the environment, the fun environment, but they are deadly serious when they get to the racetrack and what it takes to win. So much success over the years, and I think later this month, Will Turner's operation will break the record for customer racing program in terms of race starts that's been held by Team Schnitzer for many years. It's like 550, 560 races, somewhere in that range.
Right. And pretty amazing to think about that. Schnitzer, a name known globally for its exploits racing BMWs. And Turner, over the years, has racked up some impressive stats, primarily here in North America, but from the highest levels of GT racing all the way down to touring cars and everything in between. And it all starts with the man whose name is on the door, Will Turner.
Yeah, he's a great driver himself. Had a lot of success over the years, a lot of that in World Challenge, and now as SRO, of course. Legends behind the wheels of his race cars over the years.
Race control with a major announcement. Drive-through penalty for the leader, the 38, Neil Verhagen. Race start violation. Winners yesterday. They got their work cut out for them if they're going to repeat here on Sunday.
Wow, that is huge. Must say that he manipulated the start in some way. I'm not sure if he went too early. Before the green was out, you're into that acceleration zone. As you come down the front stretch here, it's actually on the run down to the stripe.
So the message from race control cites Article 45.16 pace. So it must have to do with the speed at which he came to take the green flag, or perhaps lack of consistency in that pace. Let's take a look here, see if you can pick up on anything.
It was slow, maybe slowed the pace down. Stacked everyone up. That can obviously get a bit sketchy there, so maybe they just felt that he got to the acceleration zone and didn't continue to accelerate and slowed it down at that point, which you're not allowed to do.
Now Verhagen now will need to push until he's forced to serve that penalty to try and mitigate the damage.
Wow, kind of ironic, because last year they had that brilliant run from 14th on the grid to the victory, and then they lost that in post-race tech here. So we talked about yesterday redemption, but this is a big one.
Well, especially when you consider the championship. Now, it's still very early in the year. This is just race 4, but yesterday was a big day for this team. Thinking about the points battle. Verhagen will stay out
right now.
Yep. You get a couple laps to serve this. Word from race control is that this car slowed significantly in the start zone, and is verbatim what we've been told, and that is the cause for the penalty.
Yep, well, they have driver meetings that walk you through that, and I think Neil just thought he could slow it down and probably surprise everyone by being in the right gear and just launch off the start there, but it's backfired on him, unfortunately. Basically run the perfect weekend so far. That qualifying lap he put together with the strategy that they had by sending him back out on fresh sticker tires, then the brilliant drive he put together yesterday. So now we're looking at the effective lead of the race, and we'll put Robbie Foley in the lead in Pro-Am as well, with Colin Brown will be moved up to second in Pro-Am once Verhagen makes his pit stop. As you said, Ron, he's only got a couple of laps to do that, otherwise they'll stop scoring him.
Well, let's think about this for a moment and what the implication could be looking ahead to the second half of the race, with Foley now inheriting not just the overall lead, but maybe more importantly, the lead in class once Verhagen serves that penalty. That would then put his young teammate, potentially, Justin Rothberg, in a position where he leads this race in his final stint to take it to the checkered flag. It's his first season of GT3 racing. He's had some breakthrough performances here this weekend, standing on the podium both in GT America as well as in Fanatec GT yesterday. But to be in a position then when it's your job to make sure you can take it home, secure a win, that's not something he's experienced at this level before.
Yeah, and be curious to see what sort of pace George Kurtz can have in the 04 car that will run second in Pro-Am. A long way to go till we get to that point. Certainly we can see a mix-up in those positions before that point, but just forecasting, yeah, it's going to be down to that young man who's got very little experience as now Verhagen hits pit lane.
Yeah, this is painful. What's the transit time?
It's about 30 seconds loss here, so it really hurts you in terms of staying out on the racetrack at full speed versus trundling down here at 50 kilometers an hour.
He's lost at least to the 8th spot. Looks like Veach will come through 2 for 9th at the very least. And there we go. Now that moves this into a battle for the overall lead here. Yeah, that's the whole field basically barring Jeff Burton coming by. For Neil Verhagen, who'll have to put his head down and try and recover from the mistake. There is Burton. Looks like Verhagen will get out ahead of him.
Yeah, so Burton last time across the stripe was 33 seconds back, and Verhagen just beats him out. So it's about a 30-second loss there. I think you may see a new CrowdStrike fastest lap by Neil Verhagen here. He's going to have the red mist.
Well, Foley's been running pretty quick times to this stage, although Trent Hinman was the fastest guy on track the last time by. That's the car that runs 4th overall and now 2nd in the Pro class, 2nd to the Wright Motorsports Porsche we're watching right here. You can see Trent in the background, trailing behind the Mercedes of George Kurtz.
So for Foley, he wants to certainly hang on to this lead, right? But he's also going to want to try and get as much of a gap as he can between he and the 3rd place car in line now, 2nd in class of Colin Brown, the CrowdStrike Racing entry. And that will then give Justin Rothberg, potentially, if they have equal pit stops, a bit more breathing room when he gets back and tries to get into his stride.
Well, we've been talking about Justin Rothberg's story, what a weekend it's been for him, and what it might be shaping up to be. Let's hear from the man himself now with Amanda.
Yeah, on the back of you guys talking about the experience of Justin Rothberg, I just asked him off camera how he was with pressure, and he said, well, I haven't cracked yet. As we get to the second half of this race, how do you approach it?
It's only my 2nd time doing this type of race where I jump in the car, so just got to make sure I do the pit procedure right, leave the lane right, and then hit all my marks. It's going to be weird driving without someone in front of me for the whole race, but got to get used to that. That's how the season's going to be.
You had a great day so far, finding podium for the first time in GT America. Can that momentum help?
Definitely. I've already driven the track today, driven in the car. I have a feel for it, and I'm ready to get back out there against basically a similar group of people. So we've basically around 2.
We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Well, as Robbie Foley said on the grid to Amanda, Justin doesn't know what he doesn't know. And I spoke to Will Turner about this as well. He said, you forget the fundamentals when you're used to working with experienced drivers. A lot of the normal stuff you don't talk about. But when you're a rookie, you need everything spoken about. All of the details, all of the simplicities of the sport need to be gone back over to remind a young driver what to do.
And it sounds like they've done that, because you heard in the interview, he was talking about the pit procedure, making sure you do the lane transition correctly, making sure the driver change goes smoothly. All of those little things can make the difference between victory or defeat.
Well, there's so much experience in that group. Don Salama calls the strategy, and you got Jay O'Connell, who's one of the top engineers in the paddock in North America, and he's just so smart, such a nice guy, and he's really great to work with young talent like Justin Rothberg as well. So along with Robbie Foley, great mentor. They got the total package there. They got all of the ingredients for success.
To my eye, at least, it looks like Foley is settling in and maybe holding a bit of a gap now on Elliott Skier. He was a couple tenths quicker the last time by, and this lap is shaping up to be comparable. There's the Turner Brain Trust. As Justin Rothberg steels himself for the challenge ahead. George Kurtz will be the chaser in that Pro-Am battle. Colin Brown turning in some decent laps right now. He's pretty much matching Skier, but Foley is the quickest of that lead bunch. In fact, he might be the fastest guy over the last handful of laps, and the lead has now grown up over 1 second. Speaking of George Kurtz, Colin Brown, and CrowdStrike by Riley, here is the 04 Mercedes just plugging along.
Well, we talk about the swing in the championship chase. This team swept at Sonoma, so came into this weekend with the full complement of 50 points, 14-point lead. But then yesterday, based on Verhagen and Tan taking the victory, and this car finishing down in P5, that was a 15-point swing, so it actually gave the HT racing duo the championship lead overnight, but it could be a big swing here today in the other direction.
And all because of start procedure penalties. Remember, that's what caused the drive-through for this car yesterday. So how the two recover from those penalties relative to the other, that could be the difference in who's leading the points heading into Circuit of the Americas.
And Hinman's doing a really good job there in P4. I got mixed up between the two Porsches early in the race. Said that was Sargent up there in the top 6. It was obviously Trent.
Still getting used to that livery on the RS1 car. We expect it will be Trent Hinman and Jake Peterson, a young man who's attending college at Cal Berkeley, for most of the rest of the season. This weekend it's Spencer Papelli alongside Hinman. But Jake's a busy guy. He's racing Carrera Cup down in Miami this weekend, so that's why he couldn't be here. He's got a couple other conflicts, at least one.
Talk about Verhagen's pace. Immediately got down within a tenth of his CrowdStrike fastest lap there, so he's got the hammer down. Got to try and make some ground up, and they'll probably keep him in for the full 50-minute maximum drive time, I would think, before turning the reins over to Samantha.
Giving us a bit of a preview of what we might see in the second half of this race from Philip Ellis once Jeff Burton makes his pit stop in the car that's at the back of the field right now, but that's in large part due to the fact he is the only amateur bronze-graded driver out on track at the moment up against all these pros, and they've got an ace up their sleeve.
And Jeff's done a really nice job. His fastest lap today, I think, is quicker than yesterday at 2:03.4. So that is encouraging for the team from Regulator there to see if they can minimize that gap that Philip Ellis says to try and eat into when he gets it back in the car.
Yesterday, the inverse of this strategy worked to get them onto the podium for the first time of the season, just the third time in the last 3 years. But on pace alone, you would think a top 5 would be in the cards, and maybe you get a yellow, and Philip Ellis has a chance to stack the field back up ahead of him, and now it's Ellis, a pro, facing the more inexperienced parts of some of these Pro-Am lineups in the second half. And all of a sudden, the chance for a really strong result opens up.
Philip's last lap here wasn't his best in the 2:02 range, and that's allowed Skier to get a little bit closer, but more importantly, allowing Colin Brown to eat into that gap for the Pro-Am lead as well. He's dragging Hinman along for the ride. He's a Pro-Class entry.
Foley, Pro-Am, Skier, Pro, Brown, Pro-Am, Hinman, Pro, Sellers, Pro-Am, Oberlin, Pro. You get the picture here. Sargent, Pro-Am, Beach, Pro. It's the way they run through the top 8, so no class battles shaping up at the moment. But we're getting to the point where we'll start talking about pit stops, and some of that will begin to change. On board here, Brian Sellers having a really solid day. Now into the top 5 overall thanks to that penalty to ST Racing.
Yeah, nice solid day so far. Just to reiterate, the regulations dictating a Pro-Am or a Pro entry. A Pro is allowed a silver as the second driver alongside a full Pro, either a gold or a platinum. In Pro-Am, you're mandated you must have a bronze-rated driver as part of your lineup. With that camera moving around there through turn 1. This is Christensen corner. Second gear at 65 miles an hour. Up to third. Keeps it in third. That'll get the power down a little bit smoother there as he exits turn 5. Just 150 miles an hour right here.
That engine note you were listening to, produced by a flat crank 5.5 liter naturally aspirated V8. derived from the production Z06, shares 70% of the componentry with the road-going variant of that power plant. Beautiful Corvette Z06 GT3R.
As we anticipated, a new CrowdStrike fast lap, a 2-minute flat, 0.912 for Neil Verhagen.
Wow.
Bear in mind, Foley, the leader, just ran a 202 flat, so Verhagen about a second quicker than Foley. He's trying to manage those tires, I think.
Half an hour gone, 1 hour to go here in race 2 of the weekend at Sebring International Raceway. Robbie Foley showing the way, inheriting the lead a little while ago due to a penalty for the pole-sitting car. Neil Verhagen deemed to have slowed the field down too much in the VP acceleration zone and was issued a drive-through penalty. He's on a comeback drive now, but is buried down in 11th. That team desperately could use a yellow flag. But Foley now in the Turner car out in front. Just ran back in the 201s and was moderately quicker than Skier. Brown and Hinman running nearly identical pace to the 1,000th of a second, just about behind them. Then it's Sellers, Oberlin, and Sargent coming through the picture before Zach Veach down in the 9th spot.
Yeah, Oberlin ran a lap there equal to the leader as well, so all of the BMWs look pretty strong here as Philip Ellis is getting suited and booted and ready to go.
Here's Verhagen on that comeback drive. He just came through. What kind of lap do we see from Neil? 201.7 that time as he caught the back of the pack. Aaron Povoledo, the car he's chasing, does have that CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race at a 2-minute 0.9. And he's driving through some red mist right now. This team has had its fair share of misfortune, it's safe to say, here at Sebring. That's what made the win yesterday so sweet, but they've got a lot of work to do to recover from that start penalty.
See, they're on the board, just over 58 minutes to go. The soonest anyone can come in and then do the transition time down pit lane and get their second driver in and not exceed the 50-minute maximum drive time is 51 minutes and 19 seconds. So that's the number that the regulator racing team are looking at to get Ellis in the car.
Verhagen got the run that time, was able to pull to the inside of Aaron Povoledo, and Aaron didn't fight that one too hard. There was an air of inevitability about that maneuver. Verhagen is through. This is the fastest car on the track right now, but it's all the way back in 10th spot overall.
Really has to grab that next gear out of turn 13 really quickly. Love the rhythm through those two corners.
Now the dyno run. Straight. The alternate pit lane to the right that was used when the World Endurance Championship had its events here at Sebring in previous years. Through that never-ending, seemingly, turn 17, up and over the bumps, out to the wall, the outside. Traditional pit lane to driver's right. Andy Lee, the next target here for Neil Verhagen.
Yeah, he's got a strong car. It made their task really difficult with that infraction. It's tight. It's you know, the stewards are really on top of that. We saw the call yesterday with George Kurtz sticking his nose out of line. So it seems like they're pretty vigilant with controlling these starts and making it fair for everyone.
Foley's lead over Skier at 0.7 of a second. Brown now coming under a bit of pressure from Hidman. That's down under a second.
Yeah, and that's going to change the dynamic. It's going to give Kurtz, if they both have, if they stop at the same time and have equal pit stops, Kurtz is going to be able to see Rothberg and go after him.
We are just about 5 minutes until you could potentially see cars coming into the pits with these new regulations that mandate a maximum drive time rather than a mandatory pit window like we've seen in previous years, and we expect we'll see Regulator Racing be the first to make that call, get Jeff Burton out, and put the track record holder Philip Ellis in that Mercedes. See if he can storm back through this field.
So we're forecasting the Kurtz versus Rothberg battle for Pro-Am, and then we've also got a forecast Pumpelly try to chase down Adam Adelson. So two Porsches going hard at it yesterday. We saw Skier chased down Hinman, almost got to him yesterday. Roles are reversed now with Skier having the track position over Hinman, and then their co-drivers have to get it to the checkered flag.
Back in the shot, just kind of look at Brian Sellers. Looks like Bill Oberlin has run him down. You talked about Bill's pace relative to the leaders over the last few laps, and it's been a few tenths a lap quicker than Brian Sellers in that Corvette. There is that fight.
Yeah, they might have tweaked on that number 28 entry from ST Racing for Oberlin, because I think his pace dropped off a little bit late in the going yesterday, but today he seems much, much stronger, having a really good run today, Bill Oberlin.
His young teammate Varun Choksi, certainly someone to keep an eye on in that second stint. Thought he had a really nice race in race 1 yesterday. This is Regulator Racing, currently 12th, but do not sleep on this car. There's Philip Ellis. He's getting ready to go. You think 2 laps, Cal?
Yeah, I think 2 more laps that can come in. I think the next one will be too early, but then 2 more, I think he should be in pit lane.
Those are the eyes of an absolute expert driver when it comes to this Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. Keep in mind.
Ooh, little moment there for Jeff. Had to get out of it. A little sideways there through turn 5.
Philip has had a wonderful start to his 2024 season, winning in class at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and then here in Sebring in the 12-hour, a relatively rare sweep of the Florida 36. Philip Ellis just getting in the zone. Amanda has more on the Swiss driver.
Yeah, and his co-driver is running some of the best laps that we've seen all day with Jeff Burton. When he first got behind the wheel of that Mercedes, he was running around 2:05 laps. Now he's in the 2:03 mark. At last lap by, I told Philip that it's about 46 seconds to P1, that is Robbie Foley, but it's about 36 seconds to Brian Sellers, who would be P3 in class. His eyebrows raised and said, it's going to be tough.
It is, but one safety car changes all of that, and that's what they hope for once the pit sequence cycles through, to bunch everybody back up and let Philip Ellis do his thing. But you know what? Jeff's been on the pace here today.
He has. I think Ellis has got a good chance of a podium. I think he has this pace to be able to do that compared to some of the co-drivers who are going to be jumping in those pro-am entries.
Philip certainly has that pace, and the reason there's even the possibility is that Jeff Burton is doing what he's been tasked to do. It doesn't look all that spectacular down in 12th, but his job is just to not lose as much ground as possible. He just needs to stay in touch to keep Philip Ellis in a position where he could potentially charge through the field, and Jeff's done just that.
Yeah, I think Jeff's pace compared to the pros is a lot better than yesterday. So I think if it had today's performance yesterday, I think they could have potentially finished second and not third. So he's learning, he's looking at the data, he's got a great teammate to work with, they've got a great engineer that they brought over from Europe. They've really raised the bar in terms of the performance of that Regulator Racing Mercedes.
It's been great to see, and that was true when they had a car, another Mercedes running under the DXDT banner back at Sonoma before they made the switch over to Corvette. Smithson and Sellers had a really good weekend in Sonoma. So it does seem like that team has unlocked some of the potential of the Mercedes platform. You know, when you get these pros in like this, Calvin, there's just not much between them. They're within a tenth of each other, it seems like, lap after lap after lap, but that's what they're paid to do.
Yes, the consistency of the lap time. It's not just the pace that's impressive, as how they can be monotonous with that and just keep lap after lap, lapping within a few hundredths, few tenths of a second. We expect to see this car in next time by. We're just under that number, 51.19. We're under that now, so any car can come in, do the transition time. That has to be 79 seconds minimum. And then when the second driver goes out, they wouldn't break through that 50-minute maximum drive time.
That car should be in this time by. These cars less likely to do so, especially the Pro-Am cars that have their pros installed at the moment, like a Robbie Foley out in front. Looks like Zach Veach may be in the pit lane.
See the little jog there as they come down to that turn 7 brake zone as Burton hits pit lane. That's really just to escape some of the biggest bumps there down into that brake zone into the hairpin.
And Racer's Edge also makes that call because Luca Mar's pace has been quite good. So Veach will hop out, Luca will hop in. There's a big height difference between the two. Look at the size of that seat insert.
A lazy boy sofa.
So that's what Zach needs to be comfortable in that seat. Here we
Issues
go.
with that driver change yesterday. Philip Ellis ready to go.
Jeff Burton helping Philip Ellis get situated inside that car. Tire change going on in the meantime.
It's like scuff sticker tires going on.
Fuel goes in as well. Looks like the fueling is done. It's just the driver change. This is taking a little while. This is not what the team needs. You hear the engine fire. Well, how much of a delay was there?
Well, the mechanic was pointing, but that can kind of somewhat be our service is done, go, 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 but it's got to be controlled in terms of not breaking through. So hopefully he didn't lose too much time there.
Sounds like maybe an issue with the seat belt, according to Amanda. Here come the leaders through. This will put this car a lap down for the moment, so they cannot afford. Well, I guess it would work itself out anyway. Never mind. Never mind. But here we go. Philip Ellis. We'll see what kind of pace he's got. How quickly can he get up to speed? What was the time on this stop? It was a 79.
It was good. It was only
so
half a second
fine.
outside. Yeah, it was no real problem. I think that, you know, you're allowed to be underneath the minimum stop time by a second, but that 10-fold penalty, so if you're a 10th too quick, that gets multiplied by 10 and gets added at the end of the race, and that can be big. We saw that with Verhagen and Samantha 10. This was like 4.5 tenths or whatever, and that turns into a 4.5-second penalty you got to make up before the end of the race. So I think that's going to stop people getting so feisty and right on the edge there with that.
And previous years, it was half of that penalty, right? It was a
5.
multiplication of 5.
Yeah, just the risk
10.
versus reward is a bit lopsided. Okay, you know, you gain a couple of tenths, but potentially you're going to lose 4 or 5 seconds if you get it wrong by a further couple of tenths.
Well, a lot of eyes will be on this car as it makes its charge through the field now with Philip Ellis behind the wheel. His job to get up to speed as quickly as possible, maybe take a little bit of time out of these other pros, especially as their tires start to wear. But then when the changeover happens and it's Ellis up against the less experienced drivers in the Pro-Am lineups, it is his time to shine.
Yeah, and will he be able to get near to that crowd strike fast lap of Neil Verhagen of a 2-minute flat .912?
Sellers, Oberlin, and now Sargent running nose to tail. Sargent,
really solid run for GMG. Carl Washington has done a great job here this weekend. Inconceivable for them to have a podium run here on Pro-Am. Washington's got pace.
It's been on display this weekend, certainly in GT America in particular. The race earlier today, one of the best we've seen from him. RS1 in the pits here, Calvin. This is Trent Hidman pitting early, getting them out of traffic and turning it over to the veteran Spencer Pumpelly.
Yeah, these two drivers will be relatively close in pace, I would feel. So get Spencer in there, and there's going to be a lot of pressure in this little battle here for he and Adam Adelson, who will jump on board when Elliott Skier finally hits pit lane.
Really smooth driver exchange there between Hidman and Pumpelly. No rush at all, service done in plenty of time. Now they just hold the car to make sure it doesn't hit the pits in under 79 seconds.
I tell you what I don't like to see. There seems to be a big discrepancy between a mechanic saying go, go, go and someone on the radio. Do you know what I mean? And that can really frazzle a driver. It's like you need one line of communication. Normally, if you've not got a minimum stop in a typical endurance race, you go as soon as you're ready, and the mechanic says you're good to go. But when you're trying to wait to make sure you don't break through that minimum stop time, you got to get a call from the radio, someone who's looking at data. We saw it with Ellis, right? The mechanic waving him out. Well, if he'd gone then, he would have broken through because he's only half a second outside of that number.
always the little intricacies in this game that could make all the difference. So we approach the halfway mark here at this stage. Pretty good outlap by the sounds of things for Philip Ellis. A couple seconds quicker than Luca Mars. You'd expect that though, drivers on the opposite ends of the experience spectrum.
Yeah, purple sector 1 for Ellis immediately, so he's got pace in that Mercedes as we expected.
Yep. Here's the overall leader coming through. Robbie Foley, then Skier, then Colin Brown, and this is Ellis. Now he's down a lap on the road to these guys, but they still owe a pit stop. You could see that car is absolutely on the ragged edge. Philip Ellis putting in qualifying laps here with 45 minutes to go.
Yeah, 2/10 off the fastest lap immediately, and for Foley and Skier, expect them to stay out for probably 2 more laps. Max amount of time that can be left on the clock would be 40. Looking at it there, 44 to go plus a bit, so they can't afford to run underneath the 40-minute mark, otherwise they would exceed the 50-minute run time in this race. But Ski's got really close.
He has. This is not for class position, let's remind you. Foley, the overall leader, a Pro-Am car, so you would expect these positions for the overall order to swap without too much drama in the second stint. How much does Skier want to push the issue, especially given that his closest competition is quite a ways back, 5th overall?
Yeah, well, Skier just wants to keep the hammer down. He needs to at least match what Pumpelli's going to achieve out there on fresher tires there in the RS1 machine. They haven't done their pit stop a little bit earlier than the 120 squad.
That's true. Pumpelli and company attempting the undercut strategy that Wright Motorsports used so effectively yesterday. That jumped them 2 spots in the pit sequence and turned them loose for Elliott Skier to try and run down Trent Hinman late in the going, and he almost did so.
Great to see Turner Motorsports back here full time. Ran full season back in 22, and last year they just showed up at VIR where Foley put the car on the pole actually, but it was just a one-off. 1 more lap is all they can do, otherwise they're going to exceed their minimum or maximum driver time here.
Top 3 cars all due in this time by. This has worked out pretty well for Ellis. He's not caught this traffic. Oh, wow, he dropped 2 wheels on the outside of turn 1. Didn't seem to slow him down too much, but that just shows he is pushing 10 tenths, maybe even 11 tenths.
Well, last time across the stripe, new CrowdStrike fast lap. 2-minute flat, .724 for Philip Ellis. There it is on the screen.
Yeah, that's exactly what he needs to do, though. That's the only way this strategy works without a yellow.
We'll wait for everyone to cycle through, then we'll start to look at the math and the permutations of what he needs to do. But I think a podium is still potentially on, even without a yellow.
Here is ST Racing recovering from their penalty. I don't know that they could have made it around, and they might have. It would have been close, but they elect to make the stop here. Verhagen out. Samantha Tan is jumping in.
There's to get Neil's take on that start. I'm sure he couldn't believe it when he got the call on the radio. Rules are rules, and they want to keep it clean. This also gets a bit dangerous if you do start to back people up in that acceleration room when everyone's on the go button, and you're kind of stalling things out a little bit. So I understand why they do it.
This is not the scenario that Samantha likely prepared for. I mean, the talk coming in was starting from pole, pretty good chance she finds herself running in a really good spot when she jumps into this car, and it will be her job to hold it. But now the mentality is totally the opposite. She has to be on the attack from the word go. Expect these cars in this lap, and sure enough, here they come. Turner in, Wright is in, CrowdStrike by Riley is in. The car you saw flash by is Ellis. He continues to charge, but the leaders make their way down the pit lane.
So expect these battles to resume here with the co-drivers. It'll be Rothberg going up against George Kurtz for the lead in Pro-Am. And once we get everyone cycled through, we'll see where Adelson sits compared to Spencer Pumpelli, who's already out there on the racetrack and into a rhythm.
There's the Turner boys going to work. That's the very tall Justin Rothberg with that super cool helmet, by the way. asked him about it. He said, you know what, I think a lot of people choose really boring helmets. I've got a friend who can do some design. I told him, have at it. And that's what they came up with. These are pretty cool helmets too, actually, on the eBoost sponsored car for Kyle Washington and Tom Sargent. Washington now getting ready for what could be a career day if they can execute. Looks like a smooth pit stop here from Turner. Thumbs up from the crew member, and he's off and running. Here's Rothberg. That's the second ST Racing car. Oberlin out, Choxy in. Here's Schwest Povolato Racing. Look at this, a little bit of overlap there, so the right car has to duck back in line. They exit the pits more or less as they came in.
And I think this is Pumpelly, I think, coming down the front straightaway. So this is going to be Adelson up against Pumpelly. Adelson gets inside Rothberg. You're not allowed to cut across there's a line there. You're allowed to go 2 wheels over. Hopefully Adelson didn't cut that too soon in his patience to get back out there.
Well, Adelson in the Pro Class this year. The car that is chasing him for Pro Class honors is Pumpelly in that second Porsche that's at the back of this train. That's why it was so important for Adelson to make that move early. In the meantime, this is a battle for position here. Rothberg and Kurtz. Kurtz, the much more experienced of the two, and look how aggressive he looks already, even on the cold tires.
Yeah.
Here comes Pumpelly.
Yeah, Pumpelly's going to be up to speed now, so he's got to try and cut through those two cars. Adelson did a great job of just leaping out there and immediately got on the pace. The question is, did he cut across that line there on pit out?
Pumpelly's undercut strategy did seem to help from a track position perspective, but it just wasn't enough to get him ahead of these two cars. So now there's that buffer from Adelson back to Pumpelly.
Well, the key is as well as Adelson jumping around Rothberg immediately. Otherwise, that would have been a lot tighter.
George Kurtz looking like he's got designs on prying that spot away from Rothberg. That is for the lead in the Pro-Am class. Pumpelly stuck behind that battle, but can't really afford to be patient at this stage in the race.
There
He'll look down
goes.
the inside.
Nice.
Kurtz sees him coming.
Yeah, that was sweet. He had to go. Can't afford to get stymied behind these two cars and take away the chance of victory.
That put a lot of faith in George Kurtz's situational awareness, though. We've seen that move go wrong a couple of times, including in this race yesterday. Kurtz thinking about challenging Pumpelly again, but ultimately settles back in. Now he'll need to redouble his efforts to get caught back up to Rothberg in that Turner BMW that holds the lead in the Pro-Am class.
Fascinating here. 4 cars, 2 different classes, but both class leads separated by just a couple of seconds and less. Pumpelly now needs to pounce on Rothberg here. Could turn 7 into the brake zone, be his opportunity. Rothberg a little bit wide there, misses the apex in turn 3. Does Pumpelly do it now? Yes, he does. Slides through. Now he's got clean air between he and the leader.
The much more experienced Spencer Pumpelly chasing down the breakout star of last year, Adam Adelson. In the meantime, it's the Pro-Am class lead up for grabs. Rothberg going on the defensive. He looks inside. Maybe is it a move on Pumpelly or is it just playing defense? Hard to tell. George Kurtz stymied for the moment.
Yeah, he managed that beautifully. So easy to just get pressured into that situation, miss your braking point. You're on the other side of the road on the driver's right. You know, maybe don't have the same reference points, but Justin Rothberg did a great job of handling that situation with Kurtz breathing all over his tail.
A tough weekend for Flying Lizard, just got a little bit tougher. Report that Elias Sabo, Andy Lee, day is done, suspension failure. Use the word from the team. So they are out of the race. We'll finish 12th here today in the overall order.
Well, Sebring breaks cars and breaks hearts, unfortunately. It's a torturous test here where a lot of manufacturers have come historically over the years to just pound around here and see what will break the race car.
Same as it ever was here today. As we talked about yesterday, yeah, the suspension is better, the damping is better. The bumps aren't. They only get worse year to year. And it continues to be a torturous test of man and machine anytime you come to this place. All right, this is starting to settle in here. Let's take a look at the situation. Adelson Pumpelly, they run 1-2 overall. They're the leaders in the Pro class. Then it's that battle for the Pro-Am lead. Right now, Rothberg absorbing the pressure from Kurtz. A distant 5th overall is Varun Choksi. He exits turn 17 as the leaders come through turn number 1, but he sits in a nice solid 3rd place in the Pro class. Then it's the 3rd place car in Pro-Am, Scott Smithson for DXDT Corvette Racing. That would be a great result. Kyle Washington, you said that podium might be in play. Well, he needs to get around Smithson to make that happen. Samantha Tan continues the recovery drive. Then it's Luca Mars, and keep an eye on Philip Ellis, who continues to blitz around this place, but is it going to be enough? How many places can he make up here in the final 35 minutes?
Yeah, we wait for him to come across the stripe, then we'll take a look. So he's 43 seconds back of the leader, and he is 18 seconds back of Samantha Tan. Podium spot is held by Smithson, so he's got 27 seconds to make up, and he's got 34 minutes to do it. I think he's got the pace to do that.
It's just, the only question, I guess, is how much does he get held up working through traffic, making those passes?
Well, the pace that he has compared to a lot of the AM drivers that he's going to be up against, I mean, we saw Spencer Pumpelly there. Admittedly, he's a silver driver, but he got through them relatively quickly, and you'd expect Ellis to have be able to do it in a similar fashion.
Well, Neil Verhagen had the frustrating penalty at the start of the race from pole position. Let's get his opinion on it here with Amanda.
Oh, and you could see the frustration as he exited the BMW, shaking his head with his helmet still on. I know you went straight to your team, talked to John Miller, talked to the engineers. Walk us through the start.
Yeah, I was rolling up, and just as anybody would, you use a bit of throttle and a bit of brake to get the car ready to launch, and I hit the rev limiter, and when I hit the rev limiter, then it dropped me down, and I don't know, they showed me the data. It was only a couple of K, but I don't know. I'm not really too sure exactly what to think. We need to look through more to really understand exactly what warranted a drive-through.
What was your reaction when you heard the drive-through penalty?
Quite shocked, to be honest. In my opinion, I didn't really do anything wrong. I didn't see anybody in my mirror have to dart out because of it. Everybody went through turn 1 cleanly, so my impression, I was leading the race and I did everything fine.
Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, essentially what Neil's talking about, you basically run the gas against the brake pedal, try and keep the boost pressure up there for the initial launch, and he must have spiked it and got into the rev limiter, and that kind of cuts the power momentarily, and I guess they must have data that they can look at and see that the speed actually dropped there in the acceleration zone from the steward's office, and that's why he got the call. So extremely frustrating, I'm sure.
Without that penalty, this battle you're looking at here, in all likelihood, would have been for 2nd and 3rd. But with the penalty, this becomes the battle for the lead. Justin Rothberg trying to finish off the job started by his teammate Robbie Foley, but George Kurtz has other ideas. He's already won a couple of races here this weekend at GT America. He's got the confidence, he knows the car, he knows the track, and he's got a lot more laps around this place than the man he's chasing.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating. So much time still on the board. And up front, Adelson leads, of course, in the Pro class. And Spencer Pumpelly on that last lap was a half a second quicker. And he sits 1.8 seconds behind. So if that difference maintains there in the pace of the two respective cars, it should take him 3 or 4 laps to maybe get to the tail of that 120 machine.
What a year it was last year for George Kurtz, of course the CEO of CrowdStrike, on top of his racing endeavors. But when I read off to you what he won last year, you're going to wonder how he has the time to be the CEO of such a major business. Last year, he won his class in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He won an Endurance Cup championship at IMSA. He won Petite Le Mans. He won the Jim Truman Award. He won the Pro-Am championship in Fanatec GT here in this series as well. Finished 3rd in GT America, plus a whole lot of other starts in various other series too. Yeah, George Kurtz, he's a busy guy, but racing in many ways his escape. It is his passion. Plus, he gets to drive some pretty amazing F1 machinery here as well, given CrowdStrike's connection with Mercedes.
Yeah, I saw some new release video just this weekend of George's exploits at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit over in the UK. We drove a couple of previous generation Mercedes Formula One cars and does an outstanding job. and just showcases what sort of prep he does even to doing that, which is not for a competition, of course, but just to get the experience. What a bucket list item that is to be any person or driver to drive a Formula One car. Just in sensational speed and abilities that they have.
He's looking like he's awfully at home in this Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo at the moment, closing in. You saw moments ago the battle for the overall lead was starting to tighten up too, with Pumpelly and Adelson now within about a second of one another. So two good battles happening simultaneously.
Yeah, Pumpelly's getting really close to Adelson. We don't see anything coming up on the notice board, so that move that he made on Rothberg when he exited the pit lane must have been totally legit. Must have been way past the blend line there, as we call it.
Kyle Washington, Samantha Tan, 7th and 8th overall. This is for 4th and 5th in class. Samantha's been the quicker of the two. Over the last few laps, it's down under a second here for the ST Racing driver. There she comes, flash in the headlights. Washington says, nope, not this time. Cuts across the bow, and Samantha right there.
Big moment. Hit the bumps a little bit awkwardly there. That was a big catch by Kyle Washington.
Sure was, and it opened the door right up there for Samantha Tan to waltz through. So move the ST Racing driver up one more spot, just off the podium as they run, despite that penalty. Now in the 4th spot. Here we go. Battle for the overall lead. It is Adam Adelson, second-year GT3 driver, up against Spencer Pumpelly, who needs no introduction.
A little bit sideways there as he was anxious to get back to power. Spencer Pumpelly there, and had the rear step out on him momentarily. He's on the charge here. Got to certainly manage the tires. Just under 29 minutes still to go, but he's wanting to wrestle this lead away from the fellow Porsche.
Taking a peek, just that different approach in the run down to Tower. Shallower entry for Pumpelly in the RS1 entry. Funny how the roles have reversed one day to the next.
Yeah, and think about Adelson. He was just up on the wheel immediately. He knew the urgency. He knew he had to get on with it. Otherwise, Spencer was going to be all over him as he is exiting turn 17 as those cars were released from pit lane. And for Wright Motorsports, so much great history here at Sebring. They swept both of the classes here last year with Adelson and Ski, who ran in Pro-Am at the time, winning their respective classes. They also ran at the Sebring 12-hour this year and finished on the podium, so they come in here with a lot of confidence and trying to back up the win from yesterday. Wow, Adelson uses a lot of the road there.
That is flirting with disaster, right on the ragged edge. In the background, Rothberg still has the measure of George Kurtz, but he's got 27 long minutes still ahead of him to try and hang on. Similar story here for Adelson, trying to keep the veteran Pumpelly behind him. Spencer's father, Tom, also a sports car racer in his own right. Spencer got into motorsports. He attended a Skip Barber Racing School while going to college at George Mason University back in 1995. Helped to jumpstart a career now that is not slowing down. Spencer Pumpelly, when he's not driving, spends a lot of time calling strategy for race teams in endurance racing too. So very strategic mind behind the wheel of that car.
Actually drove for Tom's team at Daytona once in the 24-hour race. Had Ford Probes, Ari Leindyke was on the team, Tom Floyd, Scott Goodyear.
Wow.
Bruce Jenner at the time.
Yes.
Lots of good stories.
I can imagine. This is about to be three cars involved in this. The car that is looming in the distance is Varun Choksi, who has run down this battle, and Varun needs to clear them because he's in the pro class. He's got to catch up with Adelson and Pumpelly. But he also probably doesn't want to interfere too much with the battle for a class lead.
And he's got pace. I mean,
yeah.
His last lap was a 2:02.1 with the leaders running 2:02.5. So it's not inconceivable if he can maintain that with 26 minutes to go. He could get close to them, but the problem he's going to have is clearing those out-of-class entries right in front of him. Really impressive run by Varun Choksi here this weekend.
Well, Bill Oberlin told us to expect it.
Here comes Pumpelly, looking to get the power down early. Adelson likes to use all of the road, but I think Pumpelly may have got a cleaner exit in the shadows. How does Adelson handle this?
This is the most vulnerable Adam Adelson has looked. Pumpelly slices down to the inside, but Adelson rolling the speed around the outside, keeps it to the flank. Two Porsche 911 GT3Rs roaring down to turn number 3. But there at the apex, it's Pumpelly who's able to make the move stick. Spencer Pumpelly to the point.
Great racecraft, using every ounce of his experience there to deal with that situation. Adelson didn't give it to him. Hung tough around the outside. They both compromised their speed on exit of turn 1, but it gave Pumpelly the inside line there into down to Christensen corner, turn 3.
So now the attention turns to this scrap. It's still Rothberg who took over this BMW in the lead after the pit stops. George Kurtz has been harrying him from the beginning of his stint. And entering the mix now is Varun Choksi in the second of the ST Racing BMWs. But out of class, let's not forget.
Yeah, so Choksi is about 11 seconds back of Adelson, and he's running lap times about half a second quicker. So if he can clear these two cars, which isn't going to be easy, there is an outside chance of him maybe running down Adelson for a runner-up finish here today. He's on the podium right now, but he'd love to get a little bit more, trying to set up George Kurtz here as they come down into turn 13.
The final step of the podium could also still be up for grabs as Samantha Tan is starting to run down Scott Smithson. So let's not sleep on that either with 24 minutes to go. And we'll keep an eye on Philip Ellis, who had a big gulf to try and overcome. He is still running fast laps, but is yet to make any inroads on the leaderboard at the very least.
And Ellis is 15 seconds, I believe it is, behind Smiths in that podium spot. Plenty of time to go.
Rothberg with a good run onto the Ullman Straight. The BMW so strong in this section of the track. You can tell Varun Choksi thought about making a move to the inside, contemplated it. Ultimately suggested to do otherwise. 23 minutes to go. Pumpelly leads now. Adelson second. Then to this battle for the lead in Pro-Am. How will Kurtz handle this pro-class interloper that has interjected himself into the conversation?
Well, you're sure that Bill Riley and the squad there are kind of talking him through this situation, like if Choksi gets too aggressive here, just let him go and then focus back in on Rothberg.
Here we go. Ellis has caught Mars, who in turn has caught Washington.
So Ellis has enough time on the board, but as you alluded to earlier, how quickly can he get through this little battle right in front of him now?
This is not helping his cause. Not one bit. Car in front of him, not in his class. Luca Mars, currently 9th overall. Whoa! Big moment there for Luca, and contact damage to the front of Philip Ellis's car. Oh, after the podium yesterday.
Hood is up on the front end.
Yep.
Sure if the piece that flew was from the Acura, possibly.
Expect there'd be diffuser damage. If it was enough to damage the front of the Mercedes like that, then the back of the Acura might be vulnerable. I think we got to look at it again, and that hood, it continues to flap. It may be even going further up.
Talked about riding those curbs. That's what you got to be careful with, and there's the brush. Wow, and that hood is not going to stay in play there, I don't think. It's just going to lift off, so this is going to curtail. He had enough time to get to that podium here again, but this has changed the whole complexion of that.
Yeah. Now that's really tough for this Regulator Racing team. Had a great day yesterday, finishing 3rd. Looked like they might have been able to go back-to-back podiums with that strategy call, but it wasn't meant to be. Rothberg has some breathing room. This has been a really impressive drive from him. Again, just his 4th ever start in this series, just his 8th ever GT3 start of any variety.
Yeah, he's really got a great head on his shoulders, seems to handle the pressure situations appropriately. And with Choksi, he's got to regroup here. I'm sure the team will be doing the math and seeing if there's any possibility of him getting to Adelson for the runner-up finish here, as now Ellis hits pit lane. That's unfortunate. That was going to be a great final few moments of this race to see how high he could climb.
This puts it into Philip Ellis's perfect run of podiums in the state of Florida here in 2024, with wins at the 24 Hours of Daytona, 12 Hours of Sebring, then the podium yesterday. Like he might have been able to keep that hit streak going, but day appears to be done, at least for any kind of solid result. Looks like they will try and make some repairs to get him back out and maybe salvage a position or two, pick up the pieces if somebody else has some misfortune. Tough to see this. Since making the pass for the lead as Ellis heads back out, Pumpelly now has built a gap of 2 seconds over Adam Adelson. And I think we can get a postscript on this story here for Philip Ellis with the man who started the car. Jeff Burton is with Amanda.
Ronnie, I think you guys just saw the tape go on the car. There are no concerns of mechanical issues with the Mercedes at this point. And Jeff, I can just see you're bummed. Do you think there was enough time that Philip was going to catch that pack?
It was going to be real close. The last few laps, yeah, it was going to be real close. Now, we need a yellow flag. I don't even know if that's going to work too. We're probably a lap down.
I talked to you ahead of the weekend. You said you wanted to do this strategy again because of your ego. Might we see this again in COTA?
Oh yeah. We'll do it again.
There you go, guys. They're going to stick with it.
Why not? I think it's a clever interpretation of the rules. We've seen it succeed yesterday. And
Kurtz has got a run here on Rothberg. Rothberg did not get a super run through turn one. Is a little bit vulnerable here now.
It certainly is. Now, the arrival of Choxy in this battle has upended the way it had played out previously. Looked like Kurtz was absolutely in attack mode, but he's had to keep one eye out the back window on Choxy, and at times that's allowed Rothberg to escape, but right now, Kurtz looks to be the aggressor once again.
Yeah, and at one point, about 3-4 laps ago, with Choxy's pace compared to Adelson, it was feasible that he could have caught him, but now it's gone upside down because he's running laps obviously slower than Adelson, being stuck in this traffic a little bit. So got less time to work with and bigger gap to work with as well. I think it's over unless Adelson has a problem in terms of that P2 position.
And remember, we teased the battle for third in Pro-Am. Samantha Tan only 2.8 seconds behind Smithson now. That time they were equal on lap time, but the prior few laps she had been the quicker of the two. Keep an eye on that. This is a really good battle right here. This is for the lead in the Pro-Am class. Rothberg leads in the BMW.
Choxy opens it up nicely, gets a good run off of turn 16. Cars are so evenly matched. BMW typically has got maybe a couple of K on the Mercedes down the straightaways, but not enough to make the move.
There's a lot of learning going on for Varun Choxy, who is new to this level of racing, hasn't been in these positions all that often, and then trying to balance risk versus reward when you're fighting with an out-of-class car. That is always the struggle. Here he comes to the inside, and he's able to make the pass, at least for the moment, on Kurtz. Will Kurtz fight back? Doesn't look like it. Choxy covers him off. Now George Kurtz will hope Choxy can make quick work of Rothberg and maybe even present an opportunity for himself.
Ooh, a little bit slide there, a little bit wide. Yeah, I mean, he ran laps a couple of seconds than what Rothberg and Kurtz have been running, and then he sort of like got stuck in their pace. Up front here, Pumpelly has now gapped Adelson to the tune of 2.8 seconds last time across the line.
Race Vision powered by AWS. That's the tail of the tape for RS1. Started 6th, quickly up to 5th. As you can see, dropped back down because they undercut. They pitted early in the sequence, put Pumpelly in, and that really helped them from a track position perspective. Pumpelly worked his way through that Pro-Am traffic relatively quickly. Then it took him a little bit of time, but ultimately did make that pass some 10 minutes ago on Adam Adelson and has steadily built the advantage since then. It's now 2.7 seconds over Adelson between these two cars in the Pro class. Okay, here comes Choxy now. He's clear of Kurtz. What can he do with Rothberg? How hard does Rothberg fight? I suspect quite hard, because I think he likes having a buffer in between.
Yeah, well, let's not forget yesterday that there was a favor, right, from Turner went down and asked ST to let Foley buy Oberlin so he could go on the attack. So now the roles may be reversed in terms of ST asking will Turner let Choxy buy.
You might be right. It's a big gap to overcome, though, to try and get to the top two for Choxy.
I think it's all gone upside down just with the amount of time that he's had to take to get through here. And there's no fault of his own. It's just hard to pass with these cars. And see if Rothberg does get the note from Will.
In the background, that's Smithson, and that's Samantha Tan. And that is for third in Pro-Am.
I think for Rothberg, if he does want to let him by, he can't afford to lose too much time. Otherwise, Kurtz will pounce at the same time. He's trying to open him. I think he's trying to let him by. There he goes. So maybe there was a call, but there you see it. Kurtz is immediately there. So it's such an awkward scenario to let someone through and not lose too much time.
Well, what this means, though, is the battle is well and truly on once again for the lead and presumably the win. Here in the Pro-Am class, Choxy is trying to pull clear of that fight, but Rothberg in the black, white, and blue BMW now has his hands full. George Kurtz, the reigning Pro-Am champion, is on the doorstep.
And he's got a lot of confidence here this weekend, having swept GT America, but he admitted to me this morning in a text that this car is not quite as hooked up as his GT America machine, so they've had to dig a little bit deeper to get the results with this car.
There are sections of this track where the BMW seems to have the legs on the Mercedes, but inevitably, Kurtz closes back in. We've been watching this battle for some 20 minutes now, off and on, Calvin. Where do you think the Mercedes might be able to make the move? Where might the BMW have a weakness to be exploited?
Well, it's tough, right? Because you get to the brake zones where you're typically going to make a move as preceded by a straightaway, which is where the BMWs are strong. I mean, it's not a huge delta. I mean, they certainly have a little bit of an edge there, whereas Mercedes is so good in the brake zones and really good compliancy over the bumps. But where it really matters, I think the BMW may have the edge. So it's going to be a tough order for George Kurtz to make that move on a BMW. And Rothberg's done a really solid job behind the wheel as well.
Smithson, by the way, we talked about how Tan's been closing in on him, but he's been on the pace of these guys too, and that Corvette is inching ever closer. This could be a grandstand finish here in the final 13 minutes.
Yeah, I think Smithson's run a couple of laps in the 202, high 202 range. So with that sort of pace, that's really going to compress all of these four cars, because Samantha Tan is right there. Just ran out 202.5, Smithson 202.9, and the two cars in front of them in the 204 range. So this is going to be a big battle for the win here, and who finishes where on the podium as well, of course.
On board with Samantha Tan, recovering from that early drive-through penalty and setting off in pursuit of a class podium to pair with a win yesterday.
This is going to force George Kurtz a little bit when he gets the note that, listen, this car's coming at you. You know, you might be thinking, oh, it's good points here today, but right now you're going to have that 08 and the 38 on your tail here at the pace that you and Justin are running. Really solid bounce back for Scott Smithson after the little faux pas yesterday, turning Roche West around in turn 16. It's a really solid day for the DXDT Chevy Corvette.
These two so close together. Kurtz under braking. Seems to get within a couple of inches of the keel of that BMW.
And this again has championship implications with Kurtz sitting P2, Samantha Tan in P4 as the championship leader overnight, I believe, coming into this race. So if Samantha and Smithson can get to the tail of George and make some moves, that has big championship implications points-wise.
Sounds like Philip Ellis has had to make the call back to the pit lane. Maybe that 100-mile-an-hour tape didn't quite stand up to 150 miles an hour down the Ullman Straight. Tough way for their weekend to end, but they will come home with the trophy from yesterday, finishing P3 in class. We'll see them very soon again at Circuit of the Americas in just a few weeks' time. Here's Rothberg continuing to show the lead over George Kurtz. There's the Turner crew looking on.
But Smithson and Tanner running lap time still a second and a half quicker. Pressure is going to be on George Kurtz. He's going to see those cars coming. He's going to get the word on the radio. Yeah, there's only 10 minutes to go, but they've got enough time to catch them at the pace they're running.
Choxy, now that he's been turned loose, by the way, is running within a few tenths of the overall leader, Spencer Pumpelly. So really good pace out of the rookie from Georgia.
I anticipate within 2 laps that Smithson could be right with George Kurtz here.
10 minutes to go. Whether or not Smithson makes any further progress, to come away with a podium finish in this car's debut, especially given how frustrating yesterday was for DXDT Corvette Racing, that's got to bring a smile to their faces.
It really does, and for him to be running lap times about a second off Brian Sellers, who's the ultimate pro, is really a solid day for Scott Smithson. Really showcases his improvement over the last couple of years.
Watching him run down George Kurtz, the reigning champion in this series, in this class, and Rothberg, who has been super impressive all season long, just building up the pace, getting more and more comfortable with the car, and now finds himself leading in class here in the waning minutes. All of these drivers have done a wonderful job, and same can be said for Samantha Tan, who has been able to charge forward, picking up where her teammate left off.
We're going to have about 4 laps, I think, left in this race with a 4-car battle for this win. It is compressing here in a hurry. Rothberg may have got the word, you have to go. You have to go now. If you got anything left, you got to find it. Dig deep. And he does so. Does a 203.7. They'd been running laps in the mid-4, so they are responding to this challenge from behind by Smithson and Tan.
Yeah, without a doubt, but still, Smithson was 8 tenths quicker, 6 tenths quicker than Rothberg that last time by. So even with Rothberg picking up the pace, so too is this man, Scott Smithson, bringing the neck of the Corvette.
Yeah, and he's only 1.2 seconds behind George Kurtz last time across the stripe, so it's that gap is getting erased in a hurry here.
Kurtz, wow, super late on the brakes, but Cal, you said it, that's where the Mercedes seems to excel relative to the BMW. It lets him close in, but here, that BMW power can just open up the gap a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it almost caught George Kurtz by surprise there. I think he expected Justin to brake a little bit later and had to sort of like dodge to the left side, thinking if he doesn't move, I've got to take evasive action here.
Kurtz is absolutely all over Rothberg at this stage. Closes in again on the approach to Tower.
Totally different dynamic now. He can see that Corvette right behind him. He's got to go. He's got to make something happen here. Otherwise, he's vulnerable to losing his position.
Rothberg looking for a first career win in Fanatec GT. George Kurtz looking for another to go along with a couple at the season opener in Sonoma. Never mind all those that he's accrued over the years in the build-up to that championship winning season a year ago. And Scott Smithson giving this DXDT Corvette racing machine a brilliant debut here in race 2. It ended in tears yesterday, but Smithson with great pace, he has run down the reigning champ now.
He has. He's got Samantha Tan in tow as well, so anticipated it could be a 4-car battle for the win here and sorting out those podium spots. This is great stuff here with just under 7 minutes on the clock.
Fantastic. Top 4 separated by just 2.5 seconds. BMW, Mercedes, Corvette, BMW, the 4 brands involved. Saw the gap grow in the 3rd sector. That's where that BMW is so strong. But here in this part of the racetrack, the Mercedes has the measure of the Bavarian brand. Oh, and a spin for Smithson. Maybe just up over that curb a little bit, pointed the wrong way here. Needs to get the car refired. Waving yellow in the background, but that car
What a shame. What a shame. That is a heartbreaker at this stage. Such a great drive, doing such an amazing job, and just that critical error, and that has gapped Samantha Tan back as well. She's lost a bit of ground to George Kurtz in that exchange.
But she is up on the podium now because of the spin for Smithson. Kurtz, by the way, has been turned loose here. He doesn't have to think about defense anymore for the final 6 minutes, or at least until Samantha Tan runs them back down. Kurtz lets it swing wide. He's looking aggressive. Looks like he's got some pace in that Mercedes. If only he can get up to the flank of the BMW.
I've got a feeling he's going to send it. I just sense it in the dynamic, how he's driving.
How many times has Colin Brown told us, when we tell George to go, he goes. It looks like he's going at the moment. CrowdStrike Mercedes chasing the Ladecrete BMW. Rothberg maybe hung up a little bit on corner exit there, but that BMW still so strong down the back straight.
Justin has just been rock solid. He's dug deep. He found a little bit more pace when he needed to, and it looked like those cars and Smithson gets going again. Such a bit of disappointment for that group. That was a really solid day for he and Sellers to that point.
Drops him out of the top 5 in the Pro-Am class. Under 5 minutes to go. It focuses our attention then on this. Can Justin Rothberg hang on for his first career win?
Tana's got to regroup here a little bit. She's got to find that pace she was displaying before, so she needs to regroup here.
Here he comes. Kurtz is close. Oh, Rothberg just able to cover him off. You get the sense that if Kurtz just sees that little gap in the door, he's going to lower his shoulder and barge through.
Yeah, and I think Rothberg's getting a little bit defensive here and compromising his lap time a little bit, and that's going to allow Samantha to maybe catch them. There's still enough time on the board.
Pompelli continues to lead overall. It's now 6 seconds back to Adelson, 16 seconds then back to Choxy, who runs 3rd overall. Great day for him. Could be a double podium day for ST Racing across 2 classes. Samantha Tan might be thinking about more than just 3rd, though. She has caught them, you're right.
Yeah, I thought that spin by Smithson was going to cost her too much time, but she's got to head back down and forcing it here. She's going to close in on these guys before the end of this race, it looks like.
Imagine what's going through the mind of Justin Rothberg. Just the second time he's been asked to finish one of these races in Fanatec GT, and he's got the gold standard of amateur driver in this series over the last few years sitting right behind him. Race vision powered by AWS, the ups and the downs for ST Racing from pole position all the way back to effectively last, 11th after that drive-through penalty, and now the recovery drive to 6th overall, but more importantly 3rd in class, and that pressure she's putting on Kurtz has given a reprieve to Rothberg.
Yeah, he's got a good point there that's for the overall position we're looking at on that statistic there, but right now she can see the leader, and that's the important thing, the leader in her class, just a couple of cars ahead.
Didn't see when Pompelli crossed the line. It's going to be marginal about how many laps are left in this race. You do not.
He's about 30 seconds ahead of this pack right now.
Okay. And you do not have to see the white flag. It just matters if you cross the line when time runs out. So we'll keep an eye on that. But time's certainly running out in any eventuality for this trio.
Yeah, I think these guys girls have about a lap and a half to go. Probably should see the white flag next time by, I would assume.
Rothberg, Kurtz, Tan, nose to tail, line to stern. This has been fantastic. The recovery drive from ST Racing, the poise out in front for Rothberg, and then the patience and racecraft of Kurtz, but how long will the patience last?
So Samantha's obviously got more pace. Now how can she use it? You catch a pack and then you've got to just maintain your pace. Don't suddenly get into their rhythm, their braking points, their minimum rolling speed through the apex of some of these corners.
On board with Samantha Tan as the leader comes through to take the white flag. There it is, Spencer Pumpelly with 1 lap to go. RS1 looking to sweep the weekend in their return to the championship. But in the meantime, this battle has not let up whatsoever. The imbroglio for first, second, and third thunders down the Oldman Straight. George Kurtz, is this offense or defense he's playing
Defense.
here? Samantha Tan flicks the car to the outside, now falls back in line. This gives that much more room for Rothberg. He's now 1 lap away from his first career win.
Yeah, George realized there he couldn't afford to just try and grab the draft there from the BMW in front. He had to protect that inside lane and line into the final corner there.
1 lap, 3.7 miles, 17 turns to go. First, second, and third running nose to tail here on the final lap of race 2 of the weekend in Sebring. Kurtz gets a great run off of turn 1. He's closed in once again on the back of Rothberg in the Turner BMW.
How badly does George Kurtz want this victory? Can Justin Rothberg hang on for his first win? Done an excellent job, hasn't put a foot wrong, but Kurtz has got a big run here. He's close enough to think about an outbraking maneuver into turn 7.
Rothberg goes down the middle of the track. Kurtz thinks about it. Sam Tam thinks about it. She takes a lunge up the inside. Has to back out of it. They stay in the same order. First, second, and third. Rothberg, Kurtz, and Samantha Tan on the final lap.
Absolutely awesome racing here with half a lap to go. Rothberg continues to lead, holding the line, doing everything right. Kurtz thinks about a move down to the inside in turn 10. Washes out a little bit. That gives Samantha Tan a run here. Can she do anything with it?
And Rothberg still, it's not a done deal for him either. Kurtz is so strong through this section of the track, he's able to close back in. He's got at least one more good chance into turn 17. This battle not going anywhere. We'll check back in a moment, but out front, Spencer Pumpelly and Trent Hedman caught the late call up to join RS1 this weekend in Sebring, and they reward the team with the sweep of the weekend here in Florida. In the meantime, Rothberg now with an edge over Kurtz, who immediately swings inside on the defensive. Samantha Tan with a nice run coming down the back straightaway. What will the podium look like in the Pro-Am class? Just one corner left to sort it out. Rothberg flings it into turn 17. He's got the lead. Kurtz feeling the pressure from Samantha Tan, but it's Justin Rothberg out of the final turn. Rothberg, Foley, and Turner on Cinco de Mayo will celebrate with tacos tonight. Second place to the reigning champ, George Kurtz, holds off the hard-charging Samantha Tan in a grandstand finish in race 2 here at Sebring International Raceway.
What a fun battle that was. Fantastic stuff from all three of those drivers. Great performances there, and I think with that runner-up finish, it could give Kurtz and Colin Brown the championship lead back tonight as we head to COTA in a couple of weeks.
Let's flip the calendar back to yesterday real quick. Let's remember the position Justin Rothberg was in, fighting with Mr. Sebring himself, Johnny O'Connell, in the GT America race. The lessons he learned there that he filed away, how important do you think those were here today under pressure unceasingly from the time he got in the car at the tail end of this race?
Yeah, I think he's a quick study. I mean, Robbie Foley is really high on this young man's ability and how quickly he's progressing, and he's been thrown in at the deep end, and to do what he did there and hang on to a win for so long. I mean, that was a long stint to be out front and not putting a foot wrong, and he managed it perfectly.
Any first win is going to be special, but when it comes under these circumstances, you really had to fight for it, and you fended off the reigning champion, no less, to get the job done. How about Spencer Pumpelly? You think this means something to him? Burn him down. That is cool.
I'll give this man a sniff of a win. He's going to take it. He loves to win, Spencer does.
For the second day in a row, the key in the pro class might have been the undercut strategy. Yesterday, Wright used it to get themselves in position to challenge for a win. Today, it was RS1 putting Pumpelly in at the earliest opportunity or something close to it, and that paid them off in spades. Pumpelly and Hidman for the second straight day. They're your race winners ahead of Skier and Adelson, Choksey and Oberlin. But Choksey's pace today was eye-opening. Let's keep an eye on that pairing moving forward. Rothberg and Foley, what a fantastic victory for the Turner guys on a special day for them. They love their tacos, and it is Cinco de Mayo. Kurtz and Brown there, 5th overall, 2nd in class ahead of Tan and Verhagen. Double podium for ST Racing, but what might have been had they not had that penalty here today.
Yeah, I think the win was there for them, so it's really unfortunate. They'll be kicking themselves and be frustrated by that. But it's early in the season, and they got a great team. They got great performance from both of their drivers. They'll bounce back at Coda.
Heart goes out to DXDT Racing, right? Scott Smithson looked like he had potentially a podium, if not more. Just that little mistake cost him dearly.
That will sting, but that's all part of the learning curve when the pressure's on and you're going for a podium like Scott was. He drove magnificently to close that gap down, and right as he got in the heat of the battle, just made a little error there. We believe it's by himself. I don't think he was touched, but we'll wait and get the story a bit later.
Well, for Spencer Pumpelly, let's remember there are no guaranteed races for him in this car after this. So maybe that makes that celebration. It might be now after a perfect weekend, that's true. But that maybe makes that celebration there, the donuts, a little bit extra sweet for the native of Virginia that now calls the Atlanta, Georgia area home. You can see the smile on his eyes under the helmet. Spencer Pumpelly and Trent Hidman with a picture-perfect weekend here at Sebring. Let's hear from our race winners now with Amanda Busick.
And Spencer, we saw you enjoying that win there, but why was that undercut just such the winning strategy here this weekend?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. That was for the guys in the pit box. They're so much smarter than me that I just kind of do what they say, but I can't say enough again. Trent Hidman just set this car up perfectly for me to come and try to get through to the front at the end. Man, that was embarrassing, those donuts. I hadn't done them in a while, and I've never done them in this car. So apologies for the donut connoisseurs, but man, I cannot say enough about Trent, Justin Belzoni, all the guys he assembles, Porsche, everyone who helped this weekend. It was a huge thank you from me to everyone.
Awesome. Nice job, Spencer.
Really nice job indeed. That RS1 team continues to impress for the 2nd season in a row. McAleer and Filgaris last year, that was the combination to beat. It changes somewhat when we see Jake Peterson step in. It'll be a different dynamic rather than the veteran silver driver like Spencer Pumpelly. It'll be a young up-and-comer who's got some pace, but it'll be a different dynamic for sure as he starts to learn the ropes. Back down to Amanda.
And Trent has made it as you see Spencer Pumpelly and Adam having a conversation with each other. And as we talk with Trent about the wind as well, why was Spencer the right call this weekend?
I mean, when is he not the right call? You know, obviously the track record speaks for itself. It's the first time, surprisingly, I think we've ever got the opportunity to co-drive a car together, having known each other for so long. So that was an absolute pleasure. Just big thanks to Justin, Run Sport One, Porsche, Jake Peterson for the opportunity. You know, again, we're making steps every time we go out, and that's not going to stop. And just super grateful for the guys for keeping their head down and continuing to dig for more.
Nice job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Greg Gill received a text message from Will Turner wanting to know what was in the mind of his driver, Justin Rothberg, as he gets his first win, 4th race in the series. And Robbie, I know you said nice job to Justin. I'm going to come to you in just a second, but does he know how much a legend he's going to be to Turner Motorsports winning on Cinco de Mayo?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. It's Cinco de Mayo, so tacos, right? Yeah, Justin did a great job. He had a great GTA race this morning, and he's just been getting better each time he's gotten in the car. Obviously, his first year with us in this BMW. And yeah, we had a good car today, and he did the hard work bringing it home with great pressure from George behind.
That's an excellent point. And Justin, we talked to you prior to your stint, and you said that I haven't broke yet when it comes to the pressure. You had George Kurtz, the reigning champ, on your heel. How did you maintain your composure?
We didn't break yet. I didn't break yet. The boys in the shop gave us a great car, Turner Motorsports, Lady Creek Racing. They worked hard last night. Today, we were sitting pretty in the corners, had Kurtz hard behind me, and we just kept it on and pulled through.
And for Will Turner, what was going through your mind?
For Will Turner, I just didn't want to get yelled at. But we're coming back hard.
Nice job, Justin. Congratulations.
Fantastic stuff. That could be the making of a really special partnership, it would appear, at least in the early stages of the pairing. Let's look back at the start of the race, and the start was crucial because the pole sitter Neil Verhagen penalized for the pace at which he brought the field to the green. He told us he got into the rev limiter. That cost him some speed. Ultimately, the penalty was handed down, and they were on the back foot from that point onwards. Big moments here in the second half of the race with Spencer Pumpelly knifing through the Pro-Am traffic, chasing down the leader, Adam Adelson. There's a battle between these two Porsche teams both days here, and this is ultimately how Pumpelly made the move, swinging to the inside in turn number 1. They stayed side by side, the battle all the way down to turn 3, when Pumpelly ultimately made it work. This was a big moment here. Philip Ellis into the back of Luca Mars. That cost Ellis a shot potentially at a podium. Other battles going on as out-of-class cars work their way through. Scott Smithson, a late spin out of podium contention, cost Samantha Tan some momentum, maybe a chance to fight for a win. That's another look at the spin for the debuting Corvette, which did have strong pace here this weekend. Final couple of laps, Samantha Tan took her shot at George Kurtz. He took his at Justin Rothberg. At the very front, though, Spencer Pumpelly, RS1, and his co-driver Trent Hindman pick up the victory, and the celebration is on for Turner Motorsports as Justin Rothberg helps to propel that BMW to the victory. Spencer Pumpelly with some victory donuts as well. And that takes us to the podium celebration here, standing in the middle. Your race winners in the Pro-Am class, Foley and Rothberg. They've got number 1 on the trophy here in the full-time return to the series for Turner, which you mentioned earlier is wonderful to see, and this is the start of something that appears to be very special.
Yeah, they're a great group. They work hard. They like to have fun. They'll party hard tonight, but dust themselves off tomorrow and get ready for COTA in a couple of weeks.
Kurtz and Colin Brown, they're on the left. Tough day yesterday with the drive-through penalty early. Settled for a top 5, but a pretty good bounce back. And George, I think, pretty circumspect. He was aggressive, but never put the car in a position where it was going to risk a good result today.
No, I thought the dynamic there and the energy that I could sense that George was going to send it at some point, but he's very disciplined, obviously. Didn't want to risk it. Championship is obviously the big picture, and I think with today's result, they reversed the positions with the Tan and Verhagen duo.
But that said, for Samantha and Neil, the comeback drive that they had after a penalty of their own here today, that keeps them very much in the championship mix.
It does. It really does. There's a solid weekend, and what's fun is to see this battle continue at the next rounds of the championship. Everyone seems to be on form. Everyone's hitting their stride now. And as we get deeper into this season, I think both the Pro and the Pro-Am championship battle is going to be really intense and interesting to watch.
Well, certainly shaping up to be that way. Hard to predict in the Pro-Am class the way it's going to go, and the sudden appearance of RS1, I think, throws a little bit of a spanner into the works on the pro side of the equation now, too.
It does. They're obviously coming from deep in the points, and we'll have to wait and see what Trent Hindman can do with Peterson when he's his co-pilot. But nonetheless, they're a top-notch organization. They always turn out really fast race cars, and a pleasure to see them back.
Pretty cool to hear the mutual respect there between Pumpelly and Hindman. Interesting that they've never co-driven together. I know they've raced against each other from time to time, but you know, clearly there is a lot of mutual respect between the pair.
Yeah, and on paper, when we looked at the entry list for this weekend, it's like, whoa, they're going to be strong, and they certainly showed up.
Oh, what an asset to have a silver-graded driver with decades of experience racing at the highest level like Spencer Pumpelly.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's about to turn 50 here during the next 12 months, but nonetheless, he hasn't lost really any of his pace, and you could just see his poise and experience on display here today with those moves that he made.
It's a look at Elliott Skier to the left of the screen there, Adam Adelson as well. Pumpelly ultimately did get by, but Adelson put up a pretty strong fight, and when you consider the fact that he is still very, very new to racing at this level, I thought Adelson performed admirably.
Yeah, I like how he got up on the wheel immediately. You could sense that as soon as he left pit lane by juking around Justin Rothberg and getting on with it. But this young man to the left of Bill Oberlin, the BMW legend on the right of the screen, Varun Choksi, he's got a bright future ahead of him. He is doing great things at this early phase of the season.
Yeah, really cool. First of all, to see ST Racing expanding to that second car, but helping to provide a launching pad for someone like Choksi, who I imagine looks to follow in the footsteps of someone like an Adam Adelson, who arrived last year as something of an unknown, pretty good resume when you look at his GT4 career, similar with Choxy. Pretty good open wheel, pretty good single make racing background, but has a chance in this championship to burst onto the scene. There they are, your podium finishers in the pro class. They sweep the top 3 overall as well. Oberlin and Choxy finishing in 3rd. Skier and Adelson finishing in 2nd. And then it is Pompelli standing in the center alongside Trent Hindman. Late call-up, late program getting put together, but a fantastic pair of races for that pairing as they take home 2 wins this weekend at Sebring International Raceway. The hat dance continues. Now the VP hats go on for another round of photos. And very soon, the tradition started by Dan Gurney, spraying of the champagne or sparkling wine, whatever the case may be, in Victory Circle. This wraps up a fun weekend of racing for Fanatec GT World Challenge America here at Sebring. Coming up next, a trip to Austin, Texas, and Circuit of the Americas in just a few weeks' time.